Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Be seated. Okay. This meeting of the commission will be held in person at the location of the Town Meeting Hall, second floor. Members of the public are welcome to attend this in-person meeting. Please note that while an option for remote attendance or participation is being provided as a courtesy to the public, the meeting will not be suspended or terminated if technical problems interrupt the virtual broadcast unless otherwise required by law. Members of the public with particular interest in any specific item on this agenda should make plans for in-person versus virtual attendance accordingly. Okay, we'll now do a roll call. Please signify if you are here by saying present or here. Commissioner Ed Laturco.
Here.
Commissioner Rob Sheehan.
Here.
Commissioner Indra Deb.
Here.
Commissioner Kent Moffitt. He's not here.
I saw him.
He'll probably
You saw him? Okay, I'll call him after him.
Here he is.
All right. Kent, you ready? I'm calling roll call. Commissioner Kent Moffitt.
Here.
Commissioner Sarah Walensky.
Here.
Commissioner Bill Boyven.
Here.
Associate Commissioner Sadie Backstrom.
Not here tonight.
Not here tonight, okay. Okay, and for the record, the chair, Larry Cohen, is present. Okay. All right, so a couple of things about the agenda. Please note that item number 8, continued public hearing, notice of intent, 114 Wynn Street. It's for the Burlington Public Schools. It's to put an artificial turf in the backfield at Marshall Simons Middle School. It's DEP file number 122-713. Will be continued to the May 8th meeting of the commission. Could I have a motion to that effect? Second?
Second.
All those in favor? Okay, that's 700. Okay, that was item 8. Next is item 11. We have a continued public hearing, which is a notice of intent. It's the 7A Street, American Maplewood Properties LLC, material storage and crushed stone parking area. It has a DEP number of 122-715. They are continuing again till May 8th.
They're continuing to May 22nd.
Oh, May 22nd. Could I have a motion to continue the hearing for 7A Street to May 22nd?
Second.
All in favor? 700. All right. Okay. That takes care of item 1. Item 2 is public comment. Is there anyone here who would like to make a comment about something not on the agenda? You'll be given time to talk if it's on the agenda, but do we see any hands up over there?
No.
Anyone in the audience? Let's see.
Muted.
What?
You ask again for public comment. I apologize. They were muted.
Yeah, but are they unmuted now?
They're on, yeah, they can hear us now.
Is there anyone online that is here for public comment? Okay. All right. That is a no. We have approval of minutes of April 10th. Is there a motion to approve minutes of April 10th?
So moved.
Second? Do we need any discussion? Are they okay?
I watched the video.
Okay. All right. All in favor? 700. The minutes of April 10th are approved. We're down to item 4, folks. We have request for certificate of compliance, 21 Geddick Road, Thamara Martins, DEP file number 122-706. Is there someone here for that one? Come on down. How are you tonight?
I'm doing well. How about you?
Good, good. Okay, so you've requested a certificate of compliance. The commission was out there. Eileen or Lucy, you have something for us on this one?
Well,
Can I share some photos?
sure. Lisa's just going to share some photos while I speak. So this was a certificate of compliance for a single-family house tear down and rebuild.
Yep.
In the buffers to bordering vegetated wetland and bank to a locally regulated stream. When we went out there, it was looking pretty good. The grass was only just coming in. One of the issues that the commission had and that I just wanted to address is the size of the shrubs that Tamara planted. I just want to remind everybody that she didn't touch anything in the rear 60 feet of the yard. We had just agreed that she would put a fence in, and she, I think, pretty much offered to put some shrubs behind it just to start some
Natural.
regrowth happening there. So the commission was a little bit concerned about the size of the plants yesterday, and also about the fact that they've been nibbled by rabbits already. So I wanted to say, I think it's reasonable to suggest that she protect them, but I'm not sure. She also put in a few, she
So in
only
other
found
words,
tiny ones, but she found more.
these shrubs were voluntarily
Yeah,
contributed, not necessarily.
it wasn't really a demand, so that's why I don't think it's necessarily justified to be angry about the size of them, just.
Demand is a little harsh, but okay.
Sorry, but that, I think it is reasonable to ask that they be protected.
All right, okay. So let's see if anyone has any questions about that or anything else. There's a few people were out there. Kent, anything on this? Ed, anything on this? Okay. Rob? No. Indra? Sarah?
No.
Bill?
No, they're voluntarily planted, and I hope you protect them for your own investment purposes, you know?
Well, we did mention them in the order of conditions. I just wanted to say that she didn't take down any trees, so it wasn't really a mitigation.
Okay, gotcha.
Just have a question. Did you buy those plants really early or purchase them? They're really small. I mean,
Yeah, really late, actually. It was, I think, October, so it was really the last ones they had, and they were like tiny, and I went like 2 hours
so you
and a
planted
half.
them in the fall?
Yeah,
Okay.
and I drove like 2 hours to go and 2 hours to come back to try to make it in time for them to be planted before the ground froze. So they're kind of tiny
I
right
thought you
now.
planted them this spring or something, and I said, that's unusually small for fresh stock in the spring.
Yeah, so they're still pretty young and still need to get some sun, some more water. Hopefully they grow out a little bigger soon.
Yeah, because the standard size for shrubs, once we get into the season, is typically 18 inches is typical. 15
Yeah.
feet. That's like the minimum category. So this one was 8 to 10 inches, and some rabbits apparently gave them a haircut down to 2 inches, a few of them.
That's unfortunate.
You know, you can get, they have stuff that will repel rabbits. It doesn't cost that much. I mean, for $20, you can get some granules that you can put around the plant.
Okay.
And so whatever is left, they would reestablish themselves without being eaten right down to the ground.
Will that work, you gardeners? Would she be better off
Suspicious
just,
if anything you sprinkle on, a little rat wire
A little wire
circle would
might be
help
better.
a lot.
Well, the stuff is made out of, rotten eggs and garlic.
Coyote.
And
Yeah.
it smells pretty awful
Oh.
for a while. But basically, it would stop them, or you put a little fence around it or something, either way.
Dogs work too.
Okay. Is there anything else? Are you recommending issuing this?
I am recommending issuing the COC, and it's up to you about returning the bond, but I would say if she puts something up to protect the tiny shrubs, that the bond could also probably be released too. It's up to you.
Okay, all right, let's do the motion for this certificate. Could I have a motion for the release of the certificate of compliance for the project at 21 Geddick Road to Tamara Martin? Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? That was 7-0-0. Okay, now as far as the bond, how much is the bond?
3,500.
3,500. Okay. Let me just ask you, are you willing to put up either some protection or something that repels them so they have a chance of surviving?
I can try to ask the homeowner. I'm no longer the homeowner of the property. So I could try to ask if I can get out there and put some repellent, and I did ask
It's
them.
like, if you have a shaker thing, it takes like 5.
Yeah, I don't see why they wouldn't allow me. Also, just a little thing, like, we proposed a fence. We proposed to give 10 feet for the wetland to grow naturally. We actually did 25 feet, so we did more, we gave more space to the wetland. And with the fence, nobody's really allowed to keep going back there.
All right.
So
you're
hopefully we
looking-
get more
You're looking
natural.
to taking care of that, then.
You know, I forgot to mention one more thing. The chambers are also bigger.
Yeah.
I think they sort of
So-
inadvertently got bigger chambers than was actually designed, so they're probably taking more roof water than originally designed. So
60
those are all.
Eileen, just to cut, 65% more water it could handle. So we did a little extra to try to make the whole thing better. And sorry, the shrubs weren't that great.
I understood what you said. Okay, would someone like to make a motion on the bond?
I move to release it all. I'm of the opinion that, you know, if she was going to protect 25 feet of the wetland, we normally would be happy to just say, let it go natural. So anything else she's trying to do is above and beyond.
Is there a motion? Is there a second for Bill's motion?
Second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor? 700. You're all set?
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Good night.
Nice job. Okay. Okay, we're on item 5. It's a public hearing. Notice is given that the commission will hold a public hearing, during which time we'll take all information related to a stormwater permit application filed by the Town of Burlington Parks and Recreation for the construction of walkways, trails, and stormwater management, renovation of driveways and parking areas, and upgrades to recreational facilities at 1 Overlook Ave in Burlington. This is Overlook Recreation Park. The application is being heard pursuant to Burlington Bylaws, Article 14, Section 6. The commission will be reviewing all information relative to the application and may issue a stormwater permit for the proposed activities. All the application material is available at the link on the Conservation Commission page. Someone here for that one? Good evening.
Good evening.
So, obviously, you may be familiar. Please introduce who you folks are, and if there's anyone else here, you're welcome to say that.
Yes, absolutely. Good evening. My name is Regan Andriola. I'm a senior project manager and registered landscape architect with Weston & Sampson. Here on behalf of the town's Park and Rec Department. We do have representatives, Kelly Lehman from Parks and Rec Department. I'm going to just do a brief introduction, and then I'll hand it over to my colleague to talk more about the stormwater, so.
Go right ahead.
Thank you. Anthony Capichetti, I'm a registered civil engineer with Weston & Sampson. I prepared the stormwater design, and I'd like to just give you a brief presentation if that's...
Sure, if it's helpful, you can go up to the screen to point if you want to, or whatever you want to do.
Sure. Do you want me to do first?
Well, I can go through the general concepts. The numbers will help on the screen.
Sure.
Just so I'm by the microphone. As stated in the application, this is Overlook Park at 1 Overlook Avenue. It's an 8.4 acre parcel, former actually radar and barracks for a Nike missile site that was repurposed to a park. I believe it was 1964 when it became property of Town of Burlington. What we're proposing to do is improve the parking, driveway access, trailways, making them ADA compliant, as well as improve the general circulation. There's a future amphitheater proposed, and we did factor in these future phases in our stormwater calculations. Part of this design includes stormwater improvements, which are identified as numbers 10 on the plan. There are 3 main BMPs to the plan north, to the top section of the plan, are 2 bioretention areas, that they're infiltrating bioretention areas. They'll be planted and vegetated. And there's a swale that's not fully depicted that will be on the uphill side of the roadway that provides pre-treatment along the edge of the road with check dams every 25 feet. So it meets the standards for Mass DEP Stormwater Handbook vegetated filter swale. And then in front of the existing theater building, we encountered shallow groundwater down at about just a little more than 2 feet, 2 feet, 2 inches. So because of that shallow groundwater, and I believe it is a perch situation, what's happening is you have kind of a coarser, fine sandy loam above a more hard-packed one, and right at that interface, it was running into the hole. So knowing that we have that perch water table, we designed what's called a constructed pocket wetland. So similar to a regular wetland, we stay just at that groundwater interface.
Is that number 10 up there?
The main, number 10, kind of behind the parking area, yes, right there. So that'll be a constructed stormwater wetland. It will not be standing water, per se. It'll be damp, similar to a bordering vegetated wetland. There'll be wetland plantings in there. And the way those operate is through filtering of the plants, as well as root uptake of pollutants. And then the maintenance is fairly simple. End of the growing season, you basically cut the wetland plants down, like the proposed cattails and other vegetation. Those would go to disposal site, dump for burning, et cetera, and then they would grow back the following season.
So just to be clear, you have 2 bioretention areas and 1 wetland area?
Yes, constructed pocket wetland, which is
Okay.
compliant with the Mass Stormwater Handbook for design.
Yep.
So just to give you the general reason we're here, we disturb greater than 20,000 square feet. Actually, we disturb in temporary or permanent fashion about 5.8 acres of the site. There's a lot of regrading and revegetation going on. It does result in a net decrease of impervious surface of 28,212 square feet. So through this, we're removing impervious surface, improving the general stormwater condition to the site. Although we qualify as a redevelopment under Mass Stormwater Handbook, we meet all of the stormwater standards. We also qualify under redevelopment under the bylaw. We do provide 80% TSS, 50% total phosphorus reduction. The best way to treat phosphorus is infiltration, which we get out of those bioretention areas. However, the constructed pocket wetland is not as efficient as the bioretention area because there's no infiltration, but it still does meet that 50% guideline. So, see, we analyzed for peak rates of runoff for the 90% confidence interval under NOAA Atlas 14. That's coming under the new Mass Stormwater regs, and that's part of the stormwater bylaw here in Burlington. There's a net reduction in peak rate of runoff in all storms analyzed, the 2, the 10, the 25, and the 100. So in all directions flowing off the site, there is no increase in peak rate of runoff. We have level spreaders at the outlets of the bioretention areas. And it's a little bit of a unique design in that rather than have an end-of-pipe discharge to a level spreader, because this typically sheet flows off the site currently, we're building 50-foot wide trenches where we're putting perforated pipe below that, backfilling that trench with 4-inch minus stone, so pretty decent sized stone. And because it's lower than the basin, it'll bubble up out of the ground there and spread out over a 50-foot length of area rather than a single pipe that would be pointed downhill. Because there's such a great slope coming off that hill, we didn't want to concentrate the flow and have a future erosion condition. So we were sensitive to that when we did the design. We do request one waiver to the stormwater regulation, stormwater bylaw in town. In an effort to get out there quickly, I went out and performed the test pits myself. I was a licensed soil evaluator under Title V. I let my license lapse. So I am not technically a licensed soil evaluator. I'm a professional engineer. I have training in soils. I did go through the soil evaluation class and previously had passed that license. And you'll see in the new Massachusetts Stormwater Handbook, the definition of competent soil professional now excludes Title V soil evaluation.
Now it's what?
In the new regulations that are supposed to be coming out this spring,
Yes.
a licensed Title V soil evaluator is no longer considered under the Stormwater Handbook, a competent soil evaluator for stormwater purposes. So that's a change that'll be forthcoming. They're saying end of May for these regulations, but sometime this year, that change will be coming through. So I just put that out there as further justification for the waiver. What we've discussed with the Board of Health under their stormwater permit, we're fine having the health agent come out prior to construction and doing confirmatory test pits as a condition for granting the waiver.
So the reason you're asking for the waiver is because you're not certified at the present time?
Correct. I was previously certified. We needed to get the test pits done pretty quickly to,
Yeah, that's, okay.
To make the-
I understand
the
that.
deadlines.
And the new regulations coming out, how does that affect that? I wasn't-
I'm just letting you know that in the future, as far as Mass DEP is concerned,
Yes.
being a Title V soil evaluator is not considered qualification for doing stormwater soil evaluation anymore.
Anthony and Larry, would you mind if I just interject to explain what's
Sure,
the actual...
go right ahead.
more of the
It
issue
sounded
here?
like what you're saying is when the new regulations come
Well,
out,
it kind of doesn't matter about the new regulations. The town has a policy that Christine Mathis has to oversee the test pits. She is the licensed soil evaluator. Just in this instance, it didn't happen, so he's got this issue with the whole, his own credentials just at the moment being in flux. So what the waiver isn't so much from you, because it's actually a Board of Health thing, but
Yes.
if Christine Mathis is okay with this
So,
compromise of her overseeing test pits before construction starts, then I would be okay with that too. Is that okay? I just wanted us to be able to move on.
And that's-
We were bogging down.
yeah, it's stated in your regs too that the test pits should be performed by a...
The license, yeah.
Yeah, so that was the reason for the waiver. We just wanted to be transparent up front.
Okay, fair enough.
I have a question on that. Did I understand the new regulations you're referring to, even if you were a certified?
So it is kind of apples and oranges because that is under the state stormwater handbook. But yes, under the state stormwater handbook, if you were a Title V soil evaluator, that does not automatically qualify you as a competent soils professional.
so the new regulations make you less qualified if you're a Title V person.
Correct.
Okay, thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, no, there's a lot to wrap your head around on those new regs.
When the new regulation is coming out?
So the last I heard, they were saying the end of May, but these regulations have been touted as coming out for close to a year now.
Okay.
Continue.
So that concludes the presentation, and I'm more than happy to answer any questions you have on the site design, stormwater treatment. As I said before, too, we are subject to the NIPD's construction general permit, so there will be a full SWIP on this project as well.
All right, so as we go along, we'll make note of any issues that you have to get back to us on, or whatever the case is. Okay.
There was another
All right,
presentation, too.
is there more to the presentation?
No, we did it a little out of order, but if you want just a quick overview of the whole project, just to
I
get
think
everyone a
that
little
would
bit.
be nice. I think people at home might be
Yeah,
interested as well.
yeah. So, Tony just gave us all the technical stuff, which is great. But generally, the overall project is to create improvements to the existing Overlook Park with a focus on upgraded facilities and infrastructure to support expanded passive recreation use and accessibility. So a few key items. Currently, there's no formal parking out there. The only thing that's paved, there's a paved driveway that goes up to the top of the hill and basically dead ends. Obviously, the two existing buildings out there are an existing kind of maintenance and storage facility building, as well as the Burlington Players Theater building. So whenever there's theater productions, people just park in the gravel lot there with no striping or anything like that, and there's little to no accessibility around the site. So the key item here is that we will be putting in formal parking spaces, including 6 accessible spaces, primarily down at the base of the hill, but also at the top of the hill. We've included 3 accessible parking spaces and 2 or 3 regular ones right at the top so that people can get to the top of the hill and then be able to enjoy the accessible trail system that we've created. So back down at the bottom of the hill, we have the only paving our pedestrian walkways around kind of a big loop, so that middle loop there, or right in between that loop, number 1, is basically a open lawn area for, just throwing a Frisbee, informal recreation during the, nicer months. In the winter, we have that dashed oval, identifies a potential skating rink for winter months. The big pink area, number 2 in the middle, is an expanded park playground. There is an existing playground out there, but it's quite small, not accessible. This one right now will have almost all accessible features in it. We have a few picnic areas that surround it. Number 6, kind of on either side, 6 and the 6 there, yep. And then the main walkway, number 3, that kind of runs, yes, and also by the existing theater building, I'm sorry, there, right there, yeah, we've met with the fire department as well, so that will have removable bollards, so we can get fire and emergency access just along that side of the building if needed. Some other considerations, and so the rest of the trails, aside from the ones at the bottom of the hill, but all the brown ones that you see kind of through the woods and up along the top of the hill will all be permeable, but accessible. And we have new native landscaping throughout, which includes pollinator planting areas and obviously the constructed pocket wetland. And we will be having some educational signage associated with all these nature-based stormwater solutions. And that's basically, I think those are the key features.
Now, could you explain the phasing of the project?
Yes.
In other words, apparently, I think I heard something at the site walk that there's more than one phase.
Yes, so generally, the bulk of it is all going in this phase 1, in this current project. We have a few items you can see later phases. Number 16, which is the far kind of north, that would be a pump track. That's for where they go on the bikes and they go over the little bumpy trail without pedaling, and they just use kind of gravity and momentum. So again, that's not likely to be paved. Those are typically permeable. Number 16 would be the amphitheater. So that would be a small kind of amphitheater set into the slope for outdoor theater performances or concerts or something like that. 17, that would be an accessible lift for the sledding hill. So the sledding hill kind of exists anyways. That's part of, we're keeping that open for this current phase, but in future phases, if they can include this accessible lift. And then the final one at the top of the hill is a shade structure. So
Or what structure?
a shade structure, like a covered pavilion, so with picnic tables up at the top. So it's really just kind of a budget
Yep.
constraint, we're trying to do the bulk of it now, but making sure that we're planning for the rest of these items, that are relatively small. But as Tony had mentioned, we've considered all of those features in any of the stormwater calculations, and per the direction of the planning board, they wanted to see everything so that they could approve it, and then in future, when it does get to be built in the future, it could just be a minor modification or something like that.
Funding has been secured for phase 1,
Yes, yep,
not phase 2?
no.
Okay, all right, okay. That's quite a project. Okay, thank you. Maybe we'll get into some additional details, but let's go to Eileen or Lucy. Do you have comments on this for the commission?
All of my talking points were stolen by the very thorough stormwater details. I was gonna say that I was impressed with the net decrease in the impervious surface on the order of 28,000 square feet. I think that's really wonderful. And they've got so many great bioretention features in the pocket wetland, like it's a cool project.
Do you have
I
any,
also-
are there any issues you want to bring to the commission's attention at all?
You had a couple of questions? Is that
I just had a question. I wanted a little clarification on something, and I'm sure you'll be able to explain it better than I understood. When the stormwater report mentioned that the bioretention areas were designed to detain and infiltrate half an inch, and you compared that to the 0.25 inches for an HSG sea soil, but your test pits were showing sandy loam. So did you prefer to just go by the soil
So-
maps rather than what's actually on the ground?
So under the soil maps, they were classified down in the lower area as D soils. So we went by a sea soil based off the textural analysis for a fine sandy loam, which is right on that borderline there. So given the high water table, we went to a sea soil for a 1/4 inch per hour required. However, we are providing a 1/2 inch of storage, and that's what we're using for.
Okay, so you're mostly just being a bit conservative with the,
Correct. So for our drawdown rates, we used the sea soils because we thought that was appropriate based off of what was out there.
Okay.
And because of the treatment volume, you're still providing a half inch of, basically, I call it dead storage, but storage below the outlet that'll end up infiltrating into
So
the ground.
as a follow-up, Eileen, are you saying, sir, that the soil maps said D soils, but based in fact, they're better than that?
Correct.
Okay.
So-
and the only other thing, just as you were talking, the commission might like to see this too, but if we get to it, I'd love to see a picture or a detail of the level spreaders, because I was just having a hard time envisioning that, and
So-
I hadn't had a good look at the plan that
So-
showed that.
It,
that?
do you have the plan set? If we go to the
Yeah, it's
details?
Actually what I'm sharing.
Should just be able to
Would that be okay with?
clicking through.
I didn't understand what you were.
Yeah, I think it was on the
He was
detail sheet.
describing the level spreader, and I
Level
just
spreader, okay,
wasn't.
got it.
Well, we're talking about both bioretention areas? Is that?
Correct.
All right, so, well, let's add a few things to it, okay, to talk about. Could you explain on both bioretention areas where the feed for the stormwater goes in? And then you can explain the level spreader coming out
Okay.
Sure. So for the
for each one.
bioretention areas, well, we have the spreader up. Can I go backwards from how it goes out to?
Yeah, whatever you want to do. I mean,
So basically, what you have is a 3-foot wide trench that we're digging down, and we're having the outlet pipe from the bioretention area,
is that the left schematic or the right?
the left schematic, will come down and into a T, and off that T, we're putting 20 feet in each direction perforated HDPE pipe, and then backfilling that entire area with 4-inch minus stone. So I've done this on a few soccer fields previously, and it's worked out great, so it spreads the flow out over a longer area. So that will end up bubbling up to the surface and running over that 50-foot length of stone, rather than having one single pipe because of the topography out here. What's going to happen is if you have a single pipe, it's going to find a valley and it's going to start scouring, versus if you spread it out over that 50-foot area, you get much lower velocities.
Now, where does that water go?
That water goes down the hillside as it does now behind the maintenance building. That's, if we could go to the site
Behind
plan.
the maintenance building.
But at a lower rate and volume.
Correct, at a lower peak rate and a decrease in volume.
Do you want to go with the grading or layout?
Yeah, if we go to the grading plan, that would be.
The grading plan.
Yep.
This one?
Nope.
That one right there.
Yeah, that's
so-
perfect. If you can
Sorry,
scroll
it's
down
slow on
just
the
a little.
screen.
That's okay.
So there are currently,
I can also zoom in.
well, I'll stand up on this one if you don't mind.
Please do.
So currently, the site sheets in multiple directions.
Do you mind very much going to that one, because I think the glare on this one makes it just hard for the commission to see.
You can also zoom in on there if you want.
Currently on
Oh, yeah.
the site, you have sheet flow that kind of goes in this general direction here, and then up towards Overlook. So what we have is, because we have an area that's coming in this direction, and this is kind of the valley that it falls into, this is the 50-foot wide spreader here, rather than having just a pipe come out, because there are houses downhill of here, so we want to spread that flow out as wide as possible, rather than have one pipe outlet and have it end up coming directly at someone's house. We're taking kind of the natural topography where it's heading now, but spreading that out over a longer, kind of a weir to really just let it overtop and flow naturally.
Does that spreader infiltrate, or have infiltration function as well?
To some degree, I mean, when it's flowing out of the basin, you'll get some infiltration out of 150 feet, but in sea soils, it's pretty minor.
I see.
So not to say that you won't get any, but I would not, we didn't count for it in the calculations, so it's not really a significant.
Anthony, this is just taking the overflow, right? So it's not going to get a whole lot of, a whole lot.
Correct. So those storms up to the, the 1-inch storm is staying in the basin.
Right.
And then beyond that, in the more higher intensity storms that'll come out here. And then if we could pan up just a little bit behind this meeting.
Will the discharge end up being concentrated flow or a sheet flow partway
It'll
down?
start out as sheet flow. So that was the intent of this whole spreader, is to have it come out as sheet flow,
50 feet wide.
50 feet wide. This one here is 25 feet wide, I believe. Oh, sorry. Yeah, 25 feet wide. It's a much smaller area. This essentially picks up what's coming off the walkways to this constructed wetland. There's an overflow, so once it builds up to a depth of 18 inches, and that's more in the very high storms, it'll overtop into this catch basin and flow out, and then the same thing here, the outlet, which is 2 feet high. Once the water builds up to 2 feet, will flow in and flow out here. They're all designed to dewater, so that standing water will dissipate within 72 hours.
Are any of these, let's stay on this for a second. Are any of these bioretention areas handling runoff from street surface at all, paved
So-
street surface?
Yes, this one flows from about this point here. This all flows down and comes in through a gap in the curb line here, and then flows overland into that basin. This one here, if we could pan up a little bit, we may actually have to go to the next sheet. The way this is designed is this is all sheeting into that basin, as well as this whole road sheets into a swale that has check dams to slow the water down and pick up any particulate matter. So this is your pretreatment as it comes down the hillside here, because the road did, to meet the grading for...
Could you just orient me where the,
This is the bioretention area here.
and where is the entrance to the park? It's
Where?
up there. Okay, and as you go down the drawing, you're going up a hill?
We're going up the hill, to
Okay.
the top of the hill.
Okay.
So rather than catch basins and stone, there is some exposed ledge out here. The road grades were changed to meet the agreed-upon grade of no more than 12% for the fire department access. So doing that, it ended up lifting the road up a little bit, and we took advantage of the fact that, because the road's being lifted up and you have a hill coming down, it creates a nice valley. So we created a 3-foot wide swale that would be grassed and have check dams to capture that runoff and slow it down as it comes down the hill into that bioretention area. And we do have one catch basin here, because it's kind of a small area below at the amphitheater that picks up some surface water and brings that over, but it's a pretty small catchment.
All right, so that's the discharge. Now, how about where the water, how the water enters and how you're removing solids?
So the water entering is coming down
The hill.
into it from this swale in the hill. It's hitting these crushed stone check dams. That will delay the solids behind it and slow the velocity down. It'll keep overtopping. It's called a vegetative filter swale in the stormwater handbook, and that's the pretreatment coming into the bioretention.
Does anyone else have any questions on this at all?
Based on the water that's being dispersed, could you show me on the map, now I see a map, where the housing is and what direction?
If you go to the first page, that
Yeah,
aerial
you go
might
to the
show a
first.
little bit better.
So, yeah. So the houses are all in this area here. They're considerably offset from the park, but it is a steep hillside. If you could pan this way just a little bit. So this outlet is in this general area here, it follows this valley that goes between the homes. This outlet is in this low corner here. If you pan down just a touch, you can see there's a home in this general vicinity here. That's probably the closest home, but we're
Given
keeping
any
it
kind
warm.
of storm that might happen, the worst scenario, there's no threat.
So,
Well, how far is the distance, maybe, is the question?
yeah, so if you zoom out, I think there is a graphic scale on this that we could,
How far is the distance between the discharge of the level spreader and the homes?
I mean, that's 22 feet, so you're at least 100 feet away.
And how steep is the slope
All right,
going
so there we
back?
go, that's 80 feet right here. So this one, the discharge down here, 80 to 100 feet to that home.
What's the slope going down?
It's considerable there, it goes between 3 and 4 to 1 on that hillside.
That's what I was worried about.
And that's why we didn't want to have a pipe end coming in that direction.
We
Obviously.
also are
It's just
reducing,
an overflow, though.
Yeah.
And we are reducing impervious surfaces, so the volume of runoff that's being created from this site is being decreased. The difficulty is mimicking nature, when you have everything kind of sheeting out, but it does, you can see the way the contours go, it does concentrate in certain areas. So what we're trying to do is spread that out over a broad area to allow it to flow over land and then continue to do what it does currently.
I think this is currently a basketball court,
Yeah.
So
where the retention basin is.
did you consider a second leveling thing a little further down the hill to slow it down?
I would love to do something down the hill. This is our property line.
Oh,
So we really didn't have that opportunity. That's all private property, so we,
so people have, their backyards go way up the hill?
way down the hill. So
Way down there.
They're probably
Oh.
40 feet below in elevation from,
Is that the skinny bioretention basin, this one?
yes,
That's where the basketball court is now?
that's correct. So that sheets off the basketball court as it is now. And as I said, that discharge point is in this area right here, kind of trying to keep it offset from the houses.
And is there already scouring there now?
There is some scouring, you can see some rivulets in there, but not a ton. I don't
Right.
think, so the other issue is, because you use the 90% confidence interval on the NOAA Atlas 14, we're talking almost 12 inches of rain in the 100-year storm for the analysis. I've yet to see that happen in my lifetime.
We have a few more.
I hope I never do. You think of that Mother's Day storm, that was still below 7 inches
Right.
in excess of 24 hours. So, I mean, even the worst rainstorms that are about half of what we're designing for here. So there is a huge factor of safety.
Is that property in back of those bioretention areas, is it developed or is it all not developed?
It's all wooded. So that's the other thing too, is it's flowing through about 100 feet of wooded, vegetated area. So there is something to slow the velocity down as it goes. However, it is a steep hillside.
I mean, those, if you thought it was needed, you have to rely on your judgment in this case.
So, and that's why I did bring up that the outlet is unique, because
Yeah.
I didn't want you to look and say, well, why don't you have a pipe? I'm trying to explain why we don't have a pipe, because I did not think that was the,
No, that's obvious, but what I'm just trying to say is, in order to protect those people down there, if you in your judgment thought there was risk, then they might be very willing, 25 feet down, to have you create something as a secondary leveling thing that would slow it down and then let it go on a rest.
that's something that we can approach the neighbors for.
It's really your judgment. I mean,
So based off of the pipe velocity coming in and that 50-foot weir, I don't think you're going to have a scour issue. The big thing is maintaining it. The other thing I could add to that is I'd be happy with the condition to put granite curb on the edge of it, just because that way if it does not get maintained, that granite curb will stay a level edge instead of scouring.
is there a reason you're not suggesting riprap down the hill as just an easy fix to slow it down additionally?
So
It's not, they don't own it.
It's not our
we
property.
don't own it to honor the hill. That's why, like I said, we did this, or I did this on another project in Danvers for a soccer field. It was upgrading of some homes. And it was very close, and we've yet to have a problem on those soccer fields. It's worked out pretty good. When you walk by it when it's flowing, you don't even notice it. I mean, we're talking, it's coming out at a quarter of an inch high, and you'd be surprised how much water a quarter of an inch over a 50-foot weir is.
Well, I'll bet those people, if you thought it was needed, would allow you to put riprap.
It's something that we can approach them. I don't know that having a
I think-
it'd be a requirement.
I think we have to let it be your design decision
That's it.
on whether it's needed. We can't we're not
Mandate on other
qualified.
people's property, but
Yeah, but we can mandate, not only can't we mandate it, but whether it's needed is your decision.
I do not believe it's needed. However, if any of the residents would like that added belt and suspenders, it's small cost to add.
Right, that's why I said it, it's very small cost to add.
So if any of them are watching and they want to reach out, that's more than happy, and as we go forward, we can approach the residents that are downstream.
But as he said, they could add a curb behind, just to kind of be a bit of a stop
Yeah, so
for a big storm?
well, the curb would just basically, if it's not maintained and mowed, and eventually over time you start to get some rivulets and you don't take care of them on that slope, if you have a curb, that curb is kind of set there at a set elevation, and that's not gonna, if we put it set down 18 inches, that's not gonna move or channelize as much as you would with soil. So you'd have a solid edge to have it flow over.
Can I ask about the maintenance? About for the bioretention swales? You mentioned that they need to be annually mowed.
So
How important is that? And I mean, I wasn't aware that cattails like to be mowed. I mean, I think they normally just,
So, and that's just generally maintenance, so you don't have as the cattails die off, you don't get them all at the bottom of the basin. And that was just for this constructed wetland.
oh, okay, it wasn't for all the
The
other,
bioretention areas are going to be kind of an herbaceous and some shrubs, so some sedges and that sort of thing. And just because they grow up at the end of the year, it gets a little unsightly. In the fall, you mow it back, and then the following year, you let it grow back up.
Okay, anyone else on the bioretention areas? How about on the wetland area in the middle, the constructed wetland area? Anybody have questions on that?
Nope, we got a lot of other questions, but none of that.
So if I may ask a question, what is the velocity of the runoff post-construction?
Pipe end is below 5 feet per second, but because you're spreading that out, you're below 2 feet per second across that.
So based on the velocity, you are saying that
Yes,
there will
so-
not be any scouring?
Correct. On a grass slope, 2 feet per second or less, on a steep grass slope is allowed under the snowboard.
And how much you're reducing the impervious area?
How much total, or how much are we reducing? I want to say there was, and I'm going off of my head here, it's in the thing, I want to say we went from about 2 acres to 1.5 acres along that range. So there's a 28,000 square foot decrease, so just a little bit more than a half acre decrease in impervious.
Okay, thank you.
Any more questions on the wetland? I have one. Is this constructed wetland essentially like a rain garden, function like a rain garden?
It is almost identical to a rain garden, except for a rain garden's up here compared to the water table, and the constructed wetland is in the water table, so you pick some different vegetation to go in there. It's basically designed to act as our typical wetlands do, that provide limited infiltration, filtration, as well as,
Well, is the water going to fill up and just become stagnant?
no, so we're just intersecting the top of the seasonal high water table. So the idea is that water table, in the spring, there's 2 low marsh areas. So you'll have 2 areas that are really spongy, and then you have some transitional high marsh areas in between. So in the spring, yes, you'll have not standing water, but spongy, typical wetland situation, soil within, water within a few inches of the surface. But they are designed to drain down. There is a subsurface drain to pick that up.
So in other words, you're not going to have a pool full of water not draining for greater than 48 hours?
Correct. It's, I believe it's 72 under the regs, but all of these drain within 36 hours.
All right,
So I think the worst was this basin at 36, and the other 2 at 30 hours.
got it. And do you specify a specification of the material that goes into it?
Yes, in In the specifications for the project, we go through the Mass Stormwater Handbook. It's a mixture of organic materials, soil, and a little bit of sand.
All right, okay. All right, so we've covered the bioretention areas, we've covered the constructed wetland. Other subjects, folks?
How many trees are coming down in this project, and how many are going in?
For my landscape architect.
You know what, I don't have the exact count on the tree number coming out. We can go to the landscape plan to see how many trees are going in. Through the main site, there's primarily, and we could probably look at, actually, I could probably look at the site prep plan. For the accessible trails, we did, our survey picked up all trees 12 inches and above. So we do have a handful that will be coming out, as well as a handful at the end of the driveway, or as the driveway goes up the hill, some of like the existing scrub trees. So we have 1, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I don't need the answer now, I just want to.
Yeah, I mean, it's like,
Meeting to make sure that what's being replaced is at least
yeah,
what's being taken out.
we can confirm the quantities to make sure we're, you know, I'd say there's probably about maybe 20 to 30 trees in total coming out. Most of those are smaller ones and along the driveway. And then we can look at our landscape plan. Trees, we have 10, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, and then I think we have 30 trees going in. So, and that's just for trees. And then obviously we have a significant number of shrubs and herbaceous.
I haven't had a chance to look at landscape plan yet. We were sort of overwhelmed with the paper for this meeting. Does it specify species that are going in?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah, that's right.
Yep.
Native are trees, okay.
Yeah, there's maybe 1 or 2 that are non-native, but were recommended, actually, I believe, by the Conservation Department. A couple.
Just looking for, see what kind of things are going on. Great. I see the number of retaining walls, especially along the Serpentine Trail there.
Yes.
What's the height of those, the maximum and materials?
Yeah, so those are all going to be natural stone, like stacked stone wall. We're trying to keep them all 30 inches or less. And I've actually, you know, we've done, this was kind of worst case scenario. I'm actually have kind of sharpened my pencil and I'm working out trying to be a little bit more creative and get this limit of grading, off grading pulled in and try to limit the amount of walls as much as possible. Obviously, we're trying to make an accessible trail, so under 5% going down a very steep hill. So we're doing our best to try and minimize the impacts on that. But again, yeah, natural stone walls, probably mostly dry stacked, and then and the material is all permeable, the walkway. So it's basically like a compacted
On this
dense grade.
planting schedule, speaking of the planting plan, I see 8 white oaks, 2 to 2.5 inch caliper. How high would you expect those to be when you buy them?
When you buy them, 2 to 2.5 inch is probably like about 10 feet or so.
Yeah, that's-
Yeah, that's about 10.
That's a pretty hardy.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good,
Yeah, and I know the Parks Department did want to do some larger specimens. There's a bit of a, you know, an argument in the, you know, landscape nursery world too, to say that putting in something a little bit smaller actually establishes quicker because there's less transplant shock from the roots system. You know, if you plant something.
What I recently read is that 8 to 10 is a good compromise for a thing. 10 to 12 is kind of like the outer limit that even a homeowner
Right.
could possibly do, and it's less likely to survive.
Yes, yeah, so there's an upfront cost, and then there's such a greater risk of them not surviving, and especially on a site like that. It would be one thing if it was a smaller site, an urban site, where, you know, going to a 3 or 4 inch caliper tree and much taller one would look, you know, significant, but out here, this is wooded, you know, we're out in nature anyways, so whatever we plant is going to look like a newly planted tree and not look like, you know, the existing
8
mature
to 10
forest.
is a very, it's a good specimen.
Yes, yep.
Do you plan to bring, do you anticipate overall bringing in fill or removing fill? What's the net that you think is going to happen?
So
Oh, I don't,
it'll be a slight import job, but it'll mainly be road-based that's coming in. So we're going to take out the existing road, augment, it's built more of a driveway. This will be 8 to 12 inches of gravel underneath the road that'll come in. And that's typical of what we're bringing the road up is basically 16 to 18 inches total, but then you have 4 inches of pavement going.
Okay. And my last comment is sort of just a design comment. You have this lovely serpentine trail that's handicap accessible, which means it's available to people with mobility issues. The whole serpentine part, I don't see any benches. And it might be nice to have 1 or 2 resting
Yes.
spots along that trail. Because I
Yes.
see them on some other spots where there's circle trail and stuff like that, but that could be quite a stretch if you need to take a break.
yes, yeah, it's tough because we're trying to maintain that steep slope, and we didn't even have room to do leveling areas, but as I said, I'm kind of taking another pass at this and tuning it, and I think that there are some opportunities to have kind of these pull-off nodes, you know, partially down the trail, so,
That is all I have.
thank you.
Is there anyone else that has questions?
I just want to compliment, we were really impressed with what this is all about.
Yeah.
I think it's great for Burlington to see something like this happening. I just hope everything that's planned can turn out just the way you're planning.
I'm excited to see the finished product, yeah.
I have one additional question. On the check dams going down the hills, before
Yes.
it gets to the bioretention areas, is maintenance needed on that? Or do you expect stuff to accumulate behind them?
So there is an operations and maintenance plan. It's basically on a monthly basis, pick up trash, like bottles, any litter, and then 4 times a year, just check, and once you get above 6 inches of sediment, go in, ideally by hand or with the vac truck.
So there is some maintenance to check if it's needed.
However, these are not going to be heavily traveled roads. We don't anticipate, a lot of sand being brought in and out as you would on like a regular roadway. This is essentially a driveway, so the frequency that it needs to be maintained
Now-
will be a lot less than a
Now,
typical.
the jump track is Phase 2.
Correct.
Is that the area of construction or that likely, that could have protection of the public road for erosion? Is any parts of this construction likely to erode onto any public way?
So,
No.
no, we do have an erosion sedimentation control plan.
And that pump track is much further, actually, if you go to that 2 pages forward.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we're ringing the entirety of the work with, depending on where you are on the slope, either silt fence and straw wattle or actually, not sure if it was straw wattle or filter tube, but one of those methods as well as silt fence on the steep areas.
This is obviously a year-round facility with sledding and ice skating and stuff, so do you have a plan, or can you provide a plan for snow storage as well, when you're not actually going to have to plow these spaces and stuff in the winter?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
can, and ideally, we'd occupy a few parking spaces because there is no parking requirement for a park.
Okay.
So we've formalized more spaces than they currently could fit under their existing parking. So losing a couple of spaces so it could flow into the bioretention area.
That would be ideal.
Okay, so we have a full agenda, so we probably spent enough time on this for tonight. Is there anyone in the audience who has a comment on the renovation of Overlook Park in Burlington? Is there anybody online, Lucy, that wants to talk about it?
There does not appear to be.
Okay, so what I have here is that I have 3 items. One is, one, when we get to the finish line, we should do some kind of a waiver, you suggested. 2, how many trees are being removed, you're going to get back to us on that.
Yep.
3, I heard a request for benches. You're going to just review it and see if something can be done there? and 4, snow storage plant. Anything else that anyone heard?
So we offered to put the curb at the edge of that spreader as well.
Of the level spreader?
Correct.
Okay, and, okay, curb at edge of level spreader. Okay. Eileen, do you have anything else that they need? They need? I don't want to have them come to the next meeting and say, oh, you didn't bring this.
No, but like Bill said, we had a lot of material to look through, and I didn't get to every page. No, there's nothing that I found that was outstanding.
All right, so what we'll say is, if anything more is, there's not a lot here, but if anything more is needed, I assume the office will get in touch with you guys.
We could, yep.
Yeah. Okay? I think we're good. Okay. Could I have then let's move this along. Hi, could I have a motion to continue the public hearing for the renovation of 1 Overlook Ave, or Overlook Park, to the meeting of May 8th? Does that sound good? Okay, so is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? 700.
Thank you all for your
Thank you so
time.
much for
Great,
your time.
thanks so much.
Thank you.
It's an exciting project. Okay.
Gonna need a report.
All right. All right. Okay, we have a public hearing.
Are we doing the presentation for this or is that?
Notice is given, the commission will hold a public hearing, during which time will take information related to a notice of intent filed by the town of Burlington for the construction of a new school driveway, parking lot, and recreational facilities at 252 Fox Hill Road. The proposed work would be within the 100-foot buffer zone to bordering vegetative wetland pursuant to Mass General Law, Chapter 131, Section 40, which is the State Wetlands Protection Act, and Burlington Bylaw, Article 14, and within the buffer zone to a vernal pool pursuant to Burlington Bylaw, Article 14. The commission will be reviewing all information relative to the application and may issue an order of conditions and a Burlington Wetlands permit for this project. The application materials available by hitting the link on the commission's web page. Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Please go through the introductions and who you're affiliated with, and the microphone is yours.
All right, appreciate it. Thank you, Chairman. Thank you for having us here tonight. I'm Neil Harrigan from Danisco Design. We're the architects for the Fox Hill School. I'd like to introduce our team. Also have Vivian Lowe from Danisco Design. Our owner's project manager is online, Steve Brown from Doran Whittier Group. We also have our civil engineers and wetlands specialists is Horsley Witten Group, and Amy Ball is a wetlands specialist. And we also have Steve Sanish, who's our civil engineer for the project. And finally, we have our landscape architect, which is Kelly Conley from Terra Inc.
Great.
So I'm going to give you
All right, hello, everyone.
Thank you.
Can you pull the microphone just a little closer? Have a little
Sure.
there?
So if we could just advance to the next slide or two.
Yeah.
Maybe just the next slide. Okay, so just a quick agenda. We're going to go over some project details, existing conditions, and then we'll talk about stormwater management, and then the proposed work, phase construction, and then buffer zone impacts and tree and plant mitigation. You can just, the next slide, please. So this is the team we just introduced.
Come on.
And the next,
Sorry, it doesn't want to move on. Give me a sec.
So I'll just give you a quick overview of the project. So we've been working on this project for about 2 years. We started with the town about in February of 2023. We have filed an ANRAD and received an ORAD, I think, late last year. We've also, essentially, the project is, we've gone before town meeting to get funding and stuff. But essentially, with the project is the replacement of the existing school, which is going to be a new 91,000 square foot building on the same site as the existing school. It's going to be a 2-story building. It will be essentially to the north of where the existing school is in the parking lot. It's going to have 325 students plus 2 special education programs. So the lab program, which is there right now, will continue to be at the school. And there will also be the DSC's program will be brought into this building as well. As we said, the existing school will be totally functioning during the project, so there'll be a couple of phases. One, to build the school, make it functioning so that the kids can move into it, and then we'll complete the project. And so the second phase will involve removing the old building and then completing all the site work to the south of the new building. So we're kind of in the middle of contract documents right now, and we'll be completing them around Thanksgiving, and the project will go out to bid in early December. So we anticipate breaking ground in March of 2026. And I think, and with that, we're anticipating the building opening in February of 2028. So the kids will move in then, and then we'll start the second phase, which will continue into the fall of 2028.
The second phase?
The second phase will go till about November of 2028, more or less.
And the second phase is what?
Second phase will be demolishing the existing building, completing the parking lot.
Okay, that's what I thought it was, but you
and the
didn't say
site
it, so I was wondering.
Yep, okay.
Okay, yeah.
So I'm going to hand it off to Amy. She's going to talk about some existing conditions. And
Sure.
Hi, good evening. For the record, Amy Ball, Senior Associate and Ecologist with the Horsey Witten Group. So just to go over quickly the existing conditions, I think most of the commissioners were here a couple years ago when we did the ANRAD, and I think a handful of you were at the site visit yesterday. So it's about a 38-acre site. About 18 of those acres would be considered usable area because of the constraints with the wetlands, and there's some outcrop in the southeast corner. The existing single-story, sort of octagonally shaped building is situated in the south central portion of the site. And then there's an existing parking lot with 120 spaces. Resource areas are located to the north-northeast, the southeast, and then also the southwest of the site. Currently, there are no stormwater management, no formal stormwater management on the property. As far as you want to go to the next slide? The existing conditions, Neil pointed out this. We did an ANRAD in September 2023. The commission issued an ORAD in 2023 in October. And that included 4 areas of BVW, again, in the northwest corner, the northeast corner, and then a larger area within the conservation site to the southeast, which also contains a certified vernal pool. So next site. So the proposed work, Neil gave you a sort of a high, oh, this isn't the same.
Do I not have your correct one?
Hmm?
Do I not have the right one?
No, I don't think so. That's okay. If you skip ahead to about slide 13 or so, we'll just come back to the stormwater. There's a lot to go with that.
That one?
Keep going. Proposed work, there we go. So Neil gave you an overview of the school, which involves creating a new school on the existing location of approximately the existing parking lot, because the existing school needs to remain operational during the construction. So the building itself will be a 2-story building. There'll be associated driveway and traffic patterns and stormwater management and site utilities and grading and landscaping that goes along with the school itself. The work is not entirely, but it is entirely a buffer zone project. There'll be a small amount of work within the 50-foot buffer for the commissions under the local jurisdiction of about 10,000 square feet. There's no building within the 100-foot jurisdictional buffer zone. It'll be sited just slightly outside of that area. But the work within the buffer will consist largely of grading, a small area of the playground.
You might want to pull the microphone a little closer.
Oh, a little closer, sorry.
Yeah, that would be helpful. It's kind of soft.
No, I think it's, I can actually make it larger too, huh? Okay, there we go. Is that better? So the The work within the buffer zone is largely grading and landscaping. The existing parking lot itself is within the buffer zone. Existing play areas and ball fields and things are already in the existing buffer. So a lot of the work is just sort of a redevelopment of the site itself. Prior to any of the start of the work, there will be erosion controls set out to protect all of the resource areas, and those will be maintained during the entirety of the project. And a couple of the cool features of the school itself, it'll be sustainable. I understand it'll be LEED Silver in terms of its standards. So that includes solar panels and geothermal wells and electric vehicle infrastructure. And then the landscaping will be with native species, and we will, of course, do the stormwater management that is not formally on the site right now. Go to the next one. That should be the proposed work site plan.
Forward or back, sorry?
Forward, please.
Okay.
There we go. Okay. So some of the programming, we don't have to go over this in detail, but we had a traffic engineer that is also part of the project team that worked out the site circulation and the traffic and working with the two phases of the project, meaning the first phase with the construction of the new building and the second phase being the deconstruction or raising of the old the school, and then finalizing all of the site work with the parking lot and the ball fields. One of the features about the traffic is that it does have full emergency access around the school itself, which is important because that also puts some of the work a little bit closer to the buffer to the north of the building. Parking is about comparable to what it is right now, 122 spaces. And then it will also have an outdoor classroom just to the north of the building. There will be walking paths around the school property itself that will connect up to the Fox Hill Nature Trail, which is to the northwest, and to the Sawmill Brook Conservation Area to the southeast, which is where that vernal pool is located. There will also be a pollinator garden in the central circle as you enter the school. It's that triangular area there. And then there will be outdoor play, ball fields and playgrounds, and a half-court basketball. So that's the programming. We've mentioned this a couple of times now. It is phase construction. There's a whole series of the plans that describe what the phase 1 and the phase 2 are. But again, it's the building being constructed while the existing school is still operational. And then the second phase is the deconstruction of that. Neil went over the timing of all this. The plan is to start this in the spring of 2026 to remove the parking lot and then construct the building, which will take approximately 2 years. And then the second phase will start in the summer of 2028 and conclude right toward the end of the calendar year in 2028. I'm going to go to the next one, which should be buffer zone impacts. Okay. So I mentioned this is there's no resource area impacts here. They're largely buffer zone. In terms of the local jurisdiction, you have a 20-foot no disturb zone under your local bylaw. There will be some temporary impacts in that location. There's an existing septic system and fields right up close to the wetland, and those will be removed as part of the construction, and then that will be revegetated completely. So it's just a temporary impact of about 600 square feet. There's also some work between the 20 and 50-foot building, which includes both temporary impacts for removal of existing parking lots. There's and then grading and some of the programming that goes along with the new school where the parking lot exists. And then as far as permitted impacts between the 20 and 50-foot buffer zone is one small corner of the proposed playground and some of the outdoor spaces. And the remaining work will occur, and these are the buffer zones around the wetlands to the north and to the southwest, where there will be some permanent impacts associated with the project. Again, a lot of this is redevelopment of the existing impervious surfaces of the ball fields, et cetera. As far as the buffer zone to the wetland to the southeast, where the vernal pool is, there's no work within 20 feet or 50 feet. There will be some work associated with that, about an acre, where the existing ball fields exist. They will be removed as part of the second phase and revegetated with a pollinator mix and some native plantings and allowed to naturalize, which will provide some better habitat for the vernal pool species and protection of the wetland, as compared to the existing conditions, which are ball fields. Okay, next should be the tree protection plan. There we go. We can work with this. So, sorry about that. The proposed site plan is designed to mitigate as much as possible any of the work that's happening in the locally jurisdictional buffers by revegetating areas with native shrubs and trees, and our landscape architect can talk a little bit more about that. And again, I mentioned the buffer zone to the vernal pool being fully vegetated with a sort of a pollinator mix. In addition to some of the plantings that are actually occurring within the jurisdictional buffers and the vernal pool area, there's also some additional shrubs and mass plantings of perennial species, and those do extend out along the perimeter of the existing open maintained field areas to sort of soften that edge a little bit between the trees and the ball fields. I think the next slide might be the tree protection. And I think there were some questions about this, so I'm happy to take those now or in the future here.
We had a few yesterday.
We had some yesterday. All right, so why don't we, since you brought it up, why don't we engage in trees at the moment?
Okay.
How does that sound? All right, so, Eileen, would you like to say anything at this point?
I think the main question from yesterday was that the limited work stake was in front of where some trees appeared to be marked for removal, and I think we wanted some clarification on that.
There was trees marked beyond the limit of work for removal. Is that,
Yes.
that's the issue?
I think that's what we saw yesterday.
Yes.
And I think Neil did try to address it, but maybe we should do so publicly anyway.
Well, I think that this slide might help a little bit. So there's 4 different colors here. We've got,
Zoom it in.
Might want
I'm just
to
going to zoom it in for you.
zoom it
Okay,
in
thank you.
for us.
thank you, and maybe focus toward the north there, yeah.
Yeah,
You can go over there if you want, if it's helpful.
Okay, I mean, I can do that too.
to you.
Since
And
you're gonna lose
it's actually a touch screen, so you might be able to just move it yourself.
Zoom in and out.
Fancy, right?
We are.
Does she need to pick up the microphone so people can hear?
Oh, that's probably a good idea.
So you can just pick it up, I think. There you go.
Oh, it is on. Okay, there we go. So the tree removal and tree protection were all marked out on the plans. Those trees that are meant to be removed within the buffer zone are the yellow color-coded ones. Outside of the buffer, though, the pink ones, which also includes some of the existing trees at the school grounds. There's a couple of trees along Westwood Street there that'll also be removed as part of the project. The blue trees and the green trees that were marked in the field are actually intended to be marked for protection. So additional tree protection just on the outside of the limit of work, just to protect them
The painted
during
thing.
construction. So some of them were painted, but that was intended to be for protection,
So
not removal.
Orange paint was for protection.
If it was beyond the limit of work, it would have been for protection,
Yeah, I
yes.
could speak to that a little bit. I talked to the surveyor. So he marked all the trees that he put on the survey, and we asked him to mark some of the trees beyond the limit of work, just so we knew where they were to protect them. So every tree that's marked is just one that means he put it on his survey.
It's not meant to be removed.
No.
Okay. Good.
You-
That clarifies that.
I'm sorry, it might have been a little confusing yesterday. I wasn't sure
It's all
what
right.
was there.
You said you'd clear it up. You did.
So just to be very clear, anything that was beyond the limit of work is meant to be protected, not to be removed.
Okay.
There will be some plantings, some proposed plantings beyond the limit of work, where we thought that it would be easier just to add the plantings at the final stages of site cleanup, rather than have open access by all the construction equipment past the limit of work.
I have a question, if you don't mind.
Yeah.
You have quite a bit of invasive autumn olive in there. I don't know if you or your landscape architect can speak to it, but is there a plan for that removal? Some of it, I believe, was sprayed for protection, or it was sprayed to be on the plan. We don't want
Okay.
that to go out of.
I can fully appreciate that.
Yeah.
We did not actually address, as part of this filing, any of the invasive species. We're certainly open to it. In terms of removing things that are within the limit of work or just near the trees that were meant to be protected in the first place. I'm not sure how your commission feels about, sort of cutting and painting with an appropriate herbicide, or if there's some other methodology, we can explore all of that.
I don't know if you guys, that's the end of my questions, if you guys have further things to say on that.
Okay, Kent?
I think it is. I mean, it's a complete site redevelopment. So I agree with Lucy. We're basically, you are redeveloping the whole site. So, I mean, it would be appreciated if that's part of, especially trees, to Bill's point, is a huge part of this project. If there is invasive species that are part of that, I think this should be kind of considered that looked as you go through the, tree removal.
Sure, and replacement with
Yeah,
native
exactly.
species.
Yep.
Understood.
You have a full table of the number of trees being removed. Do you anticipate planting an equivalent number?
Well, we have, as shown here, the yellow trees, there's 44 trees in total, and there's a couple of along Westwood Street that are being removed, anything from a 3-inch or greater DBH. Basically, due to the site constraints, we cannot replace all 44 trees at a 1-to-1 ratio. We are putting in 19 trees back into the buffer zone, and then are mass planting native shrubs in and around those trees to kind of make sure that area becomes naturalized. And then, as I mentioned, the pollinator area to the south. Can we pan out a little bit on this? Or maybe I can.
Sorry, yes, I probably, yeah, if you,
I'm likely to mess this up something
you got it.
fiercely, but, no, yes,
Here, yeah, we're in.
sorry, I was using the wrong mouse. I'm sure I can pull it down. Oh, no, I wasn't using the wrong mouse.
Wait, no, this one's TV.
What's going on?
I just want to pan down so I can show the area that's,
Oh.
that's,
Touch the screen.
When you say
I did
that
touch
you're-
the screen.
Do.
Good.
It's not on my phone.
Oh, I can do
Yeah, yeah,
this.
yeah.
There we go, just
We're doing
a
great.
gentle touch.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a little bit obscured by the next slide here, but this area that's outlined in this, there'll be a fence of some sort that keeps the ball fields separated from the area. But this is the tree line. And so all of this area, which is about an acre, will be revegetated with a pollinator mix, native plantings. And of course, we're open to additional suggestions from the commission. if
And
you'd
where
like.
is the vernal pool in this drawing?
Okay, the vernal pool is down in here.
That's what I thought.
When you say native plants, you mean true natives?
That's the intention.
Okay.
So is the pollinator garden intended to be in the vernal pool buffer zone?
Yes. What it's doing is occupying the areas that are already existing athletic fields.
I think you're thinking of it like being a formal garden. I think they're just thinking about it as a repopulated.
Yeah, so it'll be more like a meadow area.
Meadow.
There is a proposed pollinator garden that is part of the
Yeah,
programming
but
of the
what I'm
school.
asking is what they're proposing suitable for the habitat for the buffer zone for a vernal, certified vernal pool?
I haven't looked at the individual species yet, but I know that they have people on their staff who know this better than me, so I fully expect to love it when I see it.
Okay,
I mean, the individual plants,
okay,
yeah.
all right.
Okay. So I think we may be done with this slide. Maybe I can,
Well,
Zoom back out.
yeah, maybe, and,
let's stay on trees. This may be as far as we get tonight. the way-
okay, that's fine.
I noticed that it says existing site trees to be moved within resource area, limit of work. When you say resource area, are you talking about buffer zone?
We're talking
or
about
actual
jurisdictional
resource?
buffer. No work is occurring within the resource areas. It's
You used the
within.
word resource area, so I wasn't quite sure.
That might just be a distinction between areas within the buffer zone versus not in the buffer
Areas that
zone.
are in the buffer zone versus not.
Yes.
That's what you mean? Okay. All right. And does anyone else have any anyone else have a tree question?
I just, where I saw those trees marked beyond the original removal of the trees in front, there was 5. But the marking on it was no bigger than that. I think they gotta be more defined on those trees.
Right, that'll be part of the tree protection pre-construction layout. So I'm not sure what we're using for that, but it may very well be, that orange construction fencing and maybe something even more formal than that, like the wooden staking or something to protect them.
So in terms of trees being removed, it says here that there's, one table says 50, the other one says a total of 306. Is that correct?
Did it again.
So that's the diameter breast height total.
Hi, I'm Kelly Conley from Terra Inc. So we, not knowing what your preference was for calculating number or diameter breast height, sometimes we do caliper inches, depending on the preference for the commission.
Yeah.
So the way that the table is done, we have a total tree quantity, and then we have a total DBH. Because we're looking at, when we start looking at what we're offsetting, we're looking at the number of trees, but also the accumulated DBH, and also taking into account multi-stem trees that are done by height versus caliper. So we have, in the buffer zone area, 44 total trees. Interestingly, it should be noted that 26 of those trees are 3 to 5 inch caliper, so they're rather small. We have 18 larger caliper trees being removed, so those are 6 inch up to 24 in our chart. And then in replacements, we are replacing 19 trees, and that's a combination of caliper inch and multi-stem trees that equal 19 total. So that's sort of the breakdown of the buffer, the buffer zone trees, what's being removed, what's being replaced.
And about 20% of them are evergreen?
Yes, so 11 of those, so 8 are small, probably little white pines or little things that we don't have a species designation. But yes, we do have some evergreen in there as well.
So Eileen, what is when you're replacing trees in a buffer zone,
Yeah?
we're not getting one-to-one, they said that. However, should the mix of trees reflect, for a buffer zone to a wetland, should the mix of trees reflect the same mix as what they're taking out, like 20% evergreen and 80% deciduous? I don't know if that's true.
Probably seems like a good rule of thumb. I'm just not aware of that being a rule.
Not that I know. So we are replacing with some Juniperus virginiana to use as a screening, but it's also very much part of that sort of wet environment back on the north side of the building. We have not put any other evergreens in, more or less for fear of just being wet. And I, as a rule, do not like to use white pine because they tend to drop their limbs a little too often for my liking. So we would be happy to look at something like larch, our native larch species, which is going to be deciduous, but it does better in that environment with a little more wet feet.
It's called larch?
Larch, L-A-R-I-X. That's a genus, sorry, larch, L-A-R-C-H. I think in genus and species, I apologize.
Larch trees.
Tamarix, it's sometimes, yeah.
Okay, so
That sounds good.
I guess what I was asking for a habitat value in a buffer zone of a wetland, is it still good to have evergreens as well as deciduous trees? Or should we just go with all deciduous trees?
Oh, I would think a mix is probably a good idea.
Mix is a good idea.
I have no,
Is-
I have,
would that be
right
your-
now I have no
Would
objection.
that be your opinion?
I think that I'm happy to include something like the larch in there with the juniper, with the deciduous. It gives a more robust visual. We get a better opportunity for our habitat creation. So I think that's a nice add in that area.
Is that juniper, is that eastern red cedar, or is that, what is the juniper?
Virginiana is going to be your eastern
Eastern what?
red cedar.
It is the eastern red
Yep.
cedar, okay. That's a good tree.
Okay. Okay, are we done with trees for now?
I don't know. Are you?
Just one other comment. When you're
Yes.
planting, not in the wetland areas, but general planting that you're doing, native plants, I'm a big fan of white oaks. Just, I think they're the most valuable for wildlife.
Absolutely.
So make sure, if you can.
So I'm gonna-
those.
So I know that did not put oaks on this site, and I've heard with the white oaks that they're running into some disease issue. So I'm actually been using bicolor instead, the swamp white oak.
Using bicolor?
Yeah, Quercus bicolor. So just thinking about this site, and how there's a lot of roadway area that we're sort of recreating edges. I stayed away from the oaks sometimes too with the nutfall, but that is the swamp white oak, the bicolor. I'm happy to put some of those in that buffer area when we're looking at the larch inclusion as well.
Great.
Okay. Next, what's the next topic, stormwater?
Yeah. That would,
Well, how do you want to do it? Do you want to break it up? Is that what you're
do that at the
proposing?
next meeting?
Yeah, I think it
Would that be
might
okay
be.
with you?
Do you folks, are you planning to be here May 8th? Perhaps we can have a discussion of stormwater at that time. If you were the only ones on the agenda, we could keep going for another 2 hours, but we have a lot of people here and quite a few things on the agenda.
Do you have a time frame where you need to get all this through us, or?
I think we'll just revise our presentation to focus more on stormwater for the next one.
The next one?
Yeah.
Is there,
Can we do virtual? Okay.
Oh, right.
Can we just do a quick overview of the stormwater, like a couple minutes, just to explain?
sure, a summary only,
Yeah.
okay?
Sorry,
Please do.
okay, so Eileen, if you can go back several
Oh,
slides?
yeah, sure. Sorry, I forgot I was.
It's all right.
I guess just to rebut that, though, if you're gonna split it into two, I guess what's the upside to doing a brief review? I'm just trying to understand if you're trying to, splitting up the part and do.
Okay, well,
The next section.
the brief,
Yeah, exactly.
the brief review was simply that there is no existing stormwater
No, I
management on the
understand
site,
that. I'm
and
saying,
then,
like, if we're gonna, like, basically, we covered that part, we're gonna do the next part of the next meeting, I guess, like, can we just
I
move
think that
that?
would be better.
Yeah,
I
it'd be
think
better
that's
just,
fine.
start
That's
it
fine,
now,
absolutely.
Piecemeal, and then it would be better to kind of move it.
Right.
Well,
Are there-
if they want to give a summary, I mean, I think.
No, that's okay.
I think who was giving the presentation?
oh, I was just going to go over an overview.
Okay.
And I kind of covered what we're doing now, and
Is this what, the slide you want, or something?
that's a good one. That kind of covers the overview, which is, there are a variety of different BMTs, or best management practices, that we're proposing. It's 3 different subsurface infiltration areas under the parking lots and the landscape islands. They're sort of spaced out across the site to make sure that we're matching both pre and post conditions for volume and runoff and peak runoff. And then there is, as part of that stormwater management program, we're also going to be having permeable play surfaces, which will allow for some groundwater recharge, and that's up closer to the wetland to the north, reduces your total phosphorus. Per the bylaw, there will be no increase in the peak rates of runoff of any of the study points, and the volumes at all the study points will be matched or just below the existing conditions. And I think that's about it. Overall, it's just going to remove about 80% of the TSS from the entire site. And we'll make sure that Steve is here next time so that he can give you a much more engineered version of the stormwater management plan. So,
Could you also, for the next meeting, I saw a table that said something about the number of temporary impacts in certain areas.
yes,
Perhaps you could plan to describe what you're talking about when you say temporary impacts,
got it.
okay?
Was that not what?
That was the
not
buffer zone thing. Well,
Temporary impacts in.
temporary impacts are, grading
what?
and,
In the buffers, you mean?
The buffer
temporary impacts in the
Yeah, there
buffer
was a
zones?
table I saw here somewhere that said about temporary
Covered that.
impacts.
Covered
Did we
that
cover
earlier.
that?
Yeah,
Did they already cover that? Maybe I wasn't listening. Actually,
too much input.
yes. It's,
a lot of information.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, so,
So I heard some recommendations for tree additions.
well, I heard one about somehow maybe a plan for invasive removal or something. I heard something about considering large trees. I heard they were going to include either some white oak or bicolor trees. Was there anything else anyone had?
Possibly including larches instead of pines, I think, was that it?
What was that?
Yes.
Larches
Including the
instead of
larch?
pine?
Yes.
I think that was what you meant anyway, but that's, I know you know what you were doing.
Okay, was there anything else that we mentioned that asked for? All right, so the next meeting, are you planning to come back on May 8th?
Yes. Yes, we are.
Okay, and try to get through most of it at that time. So could I have a motion? Before we do that, this is a hearing, so I need to call for questions. Are there any questions from the audience? Is there anyone here in the room or online that would like to ask a question about the construction of the new Fox Hill Elementary School? See anything? I guess the answer is no. All right, could I have a motion, therefore, if there's no other public participation, could I have a motion to continue the hearing for 252 Fox Hill Road, DEP file number 122-720, to our meeting of May 8th?
So move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? 700.
Thank you.
Okay, great, thank you very much.
See you May 8th.
May I just suggest that in case some of these people were here for the middle school, that you might just want to mention again, just in
Yes,
case.
that's a very good suggestion. All right, in case you were here for the middle school project, I announced this earlier. However, the middle school, the renovation of the back fields to put in artificial turf for soccer fields at the Marshall Simons Middle Field, otherwise known as Brush Field, they have asked for a continuance, and it was continued by the commission to May 8th. No, yes, May 8th.
This is the third time it's been continued.
Yes, I announced it right at the beginning, but you may have missed it, unfortunately. And so, all right, we also have a continuance in case you're here for 7A Street as well, and that, again, that was officially continued to May 22nd. All right, next, we have a continued public hearing, abbreviated notice of resource area delineation for essentially the high school practice field area for the town of Burlington. It is to delineate and define and confirm the resource area boundary. It's DEP file number 122-719. Is there anybody here for that one?
Yep, this is Michelle Callahan. I'm a senior project manager at Niche Engineering. I'm joined here by Andrea Kendall from LEC. I can share my screen and we can talk about a couple of the changes from the last time.
Oh,
That would be perfect.
you've made her? Yeah. Okay. Never mind. I was going to say, we got to wait a minute.
Okay, yep, nope, it's popping up. Okay.
No,
let's see.
you are a presenter now.
Okay. Okay. See that?
Oh, you can take that back if you need. I will.
All right, Andrea, do you want to just hop into some of the changes?
Sure. It might be helpful to zoom in a little bit And as you're doing that, a couple of updates since we were with the, before the commission at the last public hearing. Rich Kirby from my office met with Eileen and John Keeley to review the wetland delineation and the couple of areas that that were revised. The two areas with the circles around them, Rich reevaluated those areas and modified the delineation where the cursor is by adding one additional flag in the athletic field area, in the lawn. And then at the top right section of the existing athletic field, that wetland was extended and additional flags were added. So, and that is based on a hydric soil conditions out there and not necessarily on the, on the lawn, the grass species. So that was added. In addition, we received confirmation on the, that the mean annual high water line of the regulatory stream, the bylaw perennial stream, should be based on the maximum lateral flooded extent of the cattail marsh. So LEC went back out. We delineated that with the F-series flagging, F1 to F38, starting at the culvert and ending at the culvert to the Plan North and Plan South. And the 200-foot riverfront area is offset. On the plans that you received, I believe it also includes the 100-foot riverfront area in addition to the 200-foot riverfront area. So those are the updates since the last meeting. If there are any questions, I guess one other ask by, I think it was one of the members, maybe the chair, was to look at the area between the shed and the flag that, in that area. We did look at those soils. The horizon is, the B horizon is too bright to be, so it doesn't key out as hydric, but it at the time of our site evaluation, there was still some standing water in there, but it looked like in part, maybe some area held water at least during our site inspection, because it's just part of the path of where it's compacted, where some, the mower or whatever vehicles kind of go through there. So it's a little bit more compacted than the other areas. So that was our observation. So we did not specifically include and revise the flagging at that location.
Okay, thank you. Eileen, are you satisfied, based on your confirmation visits, with this delineation?
I am. I did go out and I saw that they had moved the flags as Andrea just described to reflect the mean annual high water. I'm pretty happy with the way the flagging it now looks. Yes.
Okay. Does anybody in the commission want to discuss any other areas on the plan that's being delineated regarding wetland boundaries? I guess the answer is no.
No, I don't really have anything.
Okay. Is there anybody in the audience that would like to ask a question or have a comment regarding the confirmation of wetland boundary, which is what this proceeding is for the practice field? Is there anyone online looking to speak?
Well, nobody's raising a hand.
No hands.
So
Does not seem so, yeah.
doesn't appear to.
No. Okay. All right, then, if that's the case, then it looks like we have draft decision to just quickly review and vote.
We do. I drafted something that I sent out to the commissioners, but I also sent it to Michelle and Andrea, and they took the red pen tools. But what they did was, I had really made it pretty, I guess, pretty comprehensive. I was breaking things down bit by bit, and to be honest, the edits they made are perfectly fine. It was, for some reason, I can't seem to find my own share, my own. Thank you very much for that. What? Okay. What I was trying to say and share at the same time is that it looks like there's a whole lot of red pen, but actually, I think that their edits were all perfectly fine. They make total sense. They pare it down in a way that just is fine. The only addition is that they've got this one extraneous word, Western, there. When you see it without your edits, Andrea, but I don't think you meant that to be there. It just, nope.
No.
I'm just going to remove that one. But I'm happy to go through these descriptions as edited by Andrea, and which I think are fine, personally. Is that okay? Can I do that?
Please do.
Okay. So an ANRAD was filed on April 1st by Nitch. The application was considered, that was all the filing stuff. Andrea added in the line, which is a good addition. This ORAD is an addition to the one filed, that was DEP file number 122710, issued by the Commission on September 17th. Then we went through the plan references, and then the resource area findings. I'm just going to make this bigger for myself so that I can actually read it. The Commission finds that the delineation of the bordering vegetated wetland identified by flags W881 to 884, including the revised flags, and she listed all of them, as adjusted by the Commission, shown in the approved plan to be an accurate representation of a BVW on the parcel under the WPA and Burlington Wetland Bylaw. The Commission finds that the delineation of the bordering vegetated wetland identified by flags WF 91 to 930, shown on the approved plan to be an accurate representation of a BVW on the parcel under the WPA. These flags represent the northern side of the wetland, partly delineated by flags 113 to 179 in the ORAD issued for DEP, the previous ORAD. The Commission finds that a regulatory stream with a 200-foot riverfront area under the Burlington Wetlands Bylaw is delineated in the field with bank mean annual high water flags F1 to F38. The Commission finds that the 200-foot riverfront area to Longmeadow Brook, which was delineated in the field with flags WFB1 to WF87. Are those the correct numbers, Andrea? I think you fixed them. And approved in the ORAD issued a few months ago, extends onto the parcel that is the subject of this study. And the Commission is not confirming the extent of bordering land subject to flooding, which extends across the parcels to the east and west of the northern practice fields. That's associated with Longmeadow Brook. Let me just make that a capital M. The Commission finds there are no other wetland resource areas on the parcel regulated under the WPA or bylaw. And then this just says that the Commission is hereby determining that the boundaries of bank, riverfront area, and bordering vegetated wetlands represents an accurate delineation. And we're asking that prior to filing a notice of intent, all flags should be rehung in the field. Relevant flags, should I say.
I do have one. You had paused on whether the flagging for the bank flags of Longmeadow Brook were accurate. I think I neglected to add a B.
That's what I was
Yeah, thank you
for reading funny. Let me go back and fix that.
Thank you for catching that.
WFB1 to WF, is it B87?
B87, that's correct.
Thank you very much, thank you.
All right, any comments by the Commission on this? Eileen, a question for you, please. Is there anything that has not been determined that needs to be stated in the findings? In other words, is there any part of the site, the western part of the site, or anything that has not been flagged?
No, I don't believe so.
The whole thing has been done.
There's one caveat on the other ANRAD. a portion of the wetland adjacent to the roadway, I guess west of the, on the west side of the roadway opposite the stadium
Yes.
was not delineated. So
I know exactly.
that was clarified, I think, in the ORAD previously.
There was a
Does
little
that need to
spot.
be clarified in here, if there's something that wasn't?
Well, we can't really clarify it because it wasn't flagged. Andrea or Michelle, would you mind just sharing again, just so we can point out what you mean? Because I think I know exactly where you mean.
Yep.
And
I
whether.
think I just need permission again.
Oh, yeah, that can happen. Sorry.
On it. That's okay.
Well, we're being a lot stricter with sharing.
Yeah, no, I don't blame you. Okay.
Okay, I think you mean, oh, sorry, you can't see my, you can't see.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, if you zoom in, it's actually
Where?
labeled wetland not delineated.
Right here.
Okay.
Yeah, that spot exactly there. There's a little section where they didn't flag. So,
There's a note on the plan,
it's noted on the plan, yes.
so that's fine then.
I think it is. I mean, it is one spot that was missing, yes. It's noted on the plan as being missing, and everything around it, including like if any work is going to happen on the field where the existing stadium is, all the areas around there were flagged, so they have kind of captured the edges of that. So I think it's okay, unless Andrew
All right.
or Michelle has a concern right now before we put this to bed.
Okay,
I don't think so. I think because it's captured, it's included in the buffer zone, right? So this whole roadway is already in the buffer zone from these wetlands here. I guess it's just like the line itself, but I wouldn't anticipate doing any work within the wetland itself. So I think that's why that wasn't delineated.
okay. Therefore, could I think one motion can do the findings and the approval, right? It's all in one document.
Yes,
Okay.
well, so I don't remember how we did it the last time. I apologize. How did we do it the last time?
Well, we'll just do it all at once.
That's fine.
Could I have a motion to approve the order of resource area delineation under the State Wetlands Protection Act and Burlington Bylaw Article 14 for the property at 3 McGinnis Drive /123 Cambridge Street, as the order as discussed, for DEP file number 122-719.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor? 700.
Abstain.
Yeah, okay, so it's 601.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, folks, thank you very much. I think we're all set here.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the edits, too.
Thank you, have a good evening.
Yep. Have a good night.
Thank you, take care, bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Okay, next,
Should probably,
Yeah,
I was just going
for
to,
the next item,
Just
I
remind
have a
me.
conflict of interest and I recuse myself.
okay? Bye. All right, we have a continued public hearing for 4 Ledgewood Drive. The applicant is Indra Deb to demolish a dwelling and build a new dwelling. DP file number 122-717. Okay, so Eileen, where did we leave off?
where did we leave off? Well, just to remind everybody, at the time of the last, when the hearing opened, they maybe had done the test pits, but we didn't have the information yet. So we had asked Jack to incorporate the test pit data and provide a stormwater report that reflected that and make updates to the plan that reflected that. We talked a little bit about trees and plantings, and he also updated the plan to reflect that. I'm sure he's willing to explain all that right now, but that's
So,
basically where we are.
That's great, so please introduce yourself.
Sure.
You have it for the record, and then you can start talking.
Yep, for the record, my name's Jack Sullivan. I'm owner of the Sullivan Engineering Group. And to follow up what Eileen was just stating, at the last hearing, there were a number of items the commission wanted to see. I'm going to go through some of the updates to the plan based on those comments. So one question was, We had done the soil test hole. We established where the seasonal high groundwater table was. The previous plan, the basement floor was 6 inches above the seasonal high groundwater table. I raised the house another 6 inches, so now there's a 1-foot separation from the basement floor to the seasonal high groundwater table. The soil test hole location that was conducted, that was added to sheet 2 of your plan set. The soil log was added to sheet number 3. An impervious area summary was added to sheet 1 for existing conditions, so it shows one of the commission members asked for a summary of the existing impervious surfaces and the proposed. So on sheet 1, there's a summary table of the existing impervious surfaces. On sheet 2, there's a summary of the proposed impervious surfaces. The proposed drainage field was located closer to the front yard instead of the rear yard, still touching the soil test hole. 1,116 square feet of the house roof is to be collected, stored, and infiltrated for the 100-year storm event. There's an NDS, the NDS pop-up emitter, which I had in my previous design, and one of the commission members had some concern if that popped up, if it would go to an abutting property. That's been eliminated from the design. Where am I? Okay, now we have a roof drain overflow. So if in the event this exceeded 100, the drainage field exceeded a 100-year storm event, the pipe would back up, it would discharge out of the roof drain and go over the grass, so not to a direct abutter. One of the members noted that there'd be a number of trees removed from this project and asked if we could do something with planting back some of the 100-foot buffer zone. So I showed proposed plantings, native trees and shrubs. They were added to sheet number 2. I provided a legend on sheet number 2 showing a mix of, there'll be 8 2.5-inch to 3-inch caliper trees planted. There'll be a mix of 3 native tree species based on availability at the nursery, and I show I show a total of 6 shrubs to be planted, 2 different dogwood and arrowwood viburnum. There was also a concern about water shedding to the abutter's property, so I added a swale along the side northerly lot line, and on the easterly side where there's a retaining wall, I made a note that the wall should be 6 inches higher than the grass grade, so any water coming off this lot would be intercepted along the wall and moved to the rear of the lot, not towards the abutter. I did update the drainage report, which I submitted as part of this application, and I think that covers it. I think all the recommendations this commission made, I made in this plan set.
Sounds like you kept a detailed list.
Tried to.
All right. Eileen, is there anything missing from what these folks supplied?
Well, no, I don't think so. I think he did a very comprehensive and thorough job of addressing all of your comments. It's a pretty small lot, and he squeezed a lot in, including some plantings, so I appreciate it.
Okay, how about the commission? Do you have anything? This is for Ledgewood Drive. Anyone?
No, I think they did address everything we had raised.
Seems that way.
Yeah.
Anybody?
Thank you.
All right, is there anyone in the audience? This is for Ledgewood Drive. Is there anyone that would like to speak about this one? Nope. Anyone, Lucy, anybody online that you see?
I'm seeing right now, we don't.
I don't want to miss someone if
No, absolutely.
going through it too quickly.
Nope, nobody here.
All right, then we have draft documents to quickly review, and
Okay, we can do that. I've got them ready to go, so I'll just
Okay.
share them here, okay? Jack, I sent this out to you earlier, so if you have any questions, just maybe stop us as we go along.
Sure.
Okay, so, starting with the bylaw. Oh, would you mind just making that bigger so people can?
Yep.
Thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Can see it. Filed an NOI for demolition of an existing dwelling deck, concrete patio and walkways, and construction of a new single-family dwelling within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands. The project also included installing an infiltration bed, grading, clearing of trees and shrubs, and planting of 8 replacement native trees and 6 native shrubs. The lot is only 10,000 square feet. Then we listed the filing history and the plan document references, all of which, or most of which, were revised last week as Jack described. The proposed work would be within the 100-foot buffer to bordering vegetated wetlands. Closest point of the proposed new dwelling, and that being the deck, would be approximately 60 feet from the wetland. The closest disturbance, which is a little bit of grading in the back right corner, would be approximately 40 feet from the BVW. The Commission is finding this project is exempt from the wetlands stormwater management regulations as it's a single-family home. However, they are infiltrating the 100-year storm, in fact, 1,116 square feet of the roof into a bed of 12 Cultec recharger chambers, and the new driveway into a stone trench. We're asking them, as we do with all single-family houses, to provide photographic evidence of the installation. They'll be installing erosion controls. Estimated seasonal high groundwater was at 95.5 inches, and the bottom of the stone surround for the chambers is designed to be 2 feet above, I believe. And this will serve as a permit under Burlington's stormwater bylaw. We are proposing a bond of
2,500.
2,500.
Yep.
But it's possible that I got that wrong because I can't remember what we've been using in the past. And just switching over to the order of conditions, we've listed the exact same plan references, hopefully. First several conditions are standard. We're saying this order permits work within the buffer zone to bordering vegetated wetlands, and no work within any other wetland resource area has been permitted by this decision. Skipping down, Jack has also seen a lot of these before, so he knows that they're pretty standard. The pre-construction conditions, batch of conditions come next. They're saying that they have to give us notice that work is going to occur, and at that time we should be invited out to visit the site to make sure that the order has been recorded, the bond has been paid, the DEP sign is in place, erosion controls are in place, and anything else that is required for general construction is ready to go. We are asking for erosion controls to be installed along the lines shown in the reference plan, and they seem to be, I think, 9-inch straw wattles and sediment filter fabric fence. Materials shall not be stockpiled on the site within 50 feet of the wetlands, nor at a location that it would allow materials to run into the streets. The stockpile should be at least 20 feet from the street. I think in your plan, unless I'm mixing you up, because there was a lot of plans this week, you had the stockpile quite close to the road, so we should just once we're out there, we should make sure the contractor knows to keep the pile off the street.
Okay.
No dewatering unless we get a plan. Keep the roadways swept. If there's a catch basin in front of or close to the house, put a silt sack in it, and we have the right to require additional erosion control. Then work involving filling and grading is the standard condition about no additional grading beyond what's shown on the plan shall be allowed. Pollution control conditions are all standard, and they talk about no refueling and no discharge or spillage of fuel oil. And it also conclude with pesticides, herbicides, fungicides should not be used within 100 feet of the stream shown on the plan. And this condition will be noted on the certificate of compliance as existing in perpetuity. Under stormwater management, we reference the field of 12 Cultec recharger chambers, which
There's no trench drain.
No, but here, I had highlighted this just
Okay.
because
Yeah.
yesterday we were out, and I didn't know when you wanted to start doing this, but he hadn't put it in the plan. I just thought, Larry was mentioning how we would like to have people start putting a trench drain when there's a slope that goes down to the street. I just wanted to highlight it here, that I know we said it, and we should ask for it in the future, but it doesn't really entirely seem fair to ask him to put something
No.
on at this point. So I just wanted to make sure we're being above board with that. It's okay, I'm going to take it out.
Going forward, though.
Going forward,
should be
we
talking
can remember
about
to
that with
ask about
applicants.
it.
Yep.
Applicants shall provide photographs of the stormwater management system being installed. Total, under buffer zone restoration, we're saying 12 trees are allowed to be permitted by this decision. And in the next condition, we're saying 8 native trees and, well, it's actually trees and shrubs. Trees and Cornus Florida, and then 6 native shrubs, other type of Cornus, and 3 viburnum, shall be planted on site as replacements for the vegetation removed per the approved proposed conditions, plot plan of land. Substitutions shall be allowed only with the approval of the conservation staff, and trees shall be monitored for 2 full growing seasons, and those that fail to survive at that time should be replaced. Surety shall not be returned until the trees have successfully survived for 2 full growing seasons. And the department shall not sign an approval for certificate of occupancy prior to installation of the plantings and stabilization. And the last condition is how you go about getting your certificate of compliance, or how your client does.
Okay, did you have any questions? You've seen this document, I guess.
Yeah, Eileen was nice enough to send it to me in advance, and the only thing was that trench drain. Everything else,
Right.
I'm used to seeing.
In this case, we're not asking for it because it
Yeah.
wasn't discussed.
No, it looked acceptable to me.
Yeah. Okay, anything from the commission on either the findings or the order?
No.
No. All right, could I have a motion to close the hearing on DEP file number 122-717?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? 600. Could I have a motion to adopt the findings under Burlington Bylaw, Article 14 for 4 Ledgewood Drive, DEP file number 122-717?
Move.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? 600. Could I have a motion to approve the order of conditions for DEP file number 122-717 for 4 Ledgewood Drive under both Burlington Bylaw, Article 14, and the State Wetlands Protection Act?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? Could I have a motion to require the posting of performance surety in the amount of $2,500 under Burlington Bylaw, Article 14, for DEP file number 122-717? Second?
Second.
All in favor? 600. Okay, this one's all set.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you, sir.
Thanks.
All right. Next on the agenda is continued public hearing, 238 Fox Hill Road. Ramil Shah is the applicant, demolish a dwelling, and construct a new dwelling. It has a signed DEP number, 122-718. Has someone gone out to see if Indra is?
He's just talking to Jack.
He's here.
Welcome back.
Thank you very much. Appreciate that. Yeah.
All right, so, we've gotten some recent correspondence from you.
Yes.
So I guess perhaps you folks could introduce yourselves and tell us what's changed, and then we'll go from there.
Sure, of course. It's Dan Dragani, Engineering Solutions Group, and Andrew will lead it off here.
Absolutely. You know we love our hard copies, so I have this as well. And I'm perfectly fine if you guys put your screens up as well.
So if you're going to point, are you going to point to that?
Likely at times.
You might want to have it so, over there, so if anybody wants to adjust their seat
Absolutely.
and that's in the audience, they won't be able to see it.
You might as well share as well. So you get on the screen.
I was just trying to make the right.
So if anyone wants to see a better view of what he's pointing to, you can go on this side. There's also chairs over here.
I'm also happy to
See what
sit around
happens.
and direct you guys when I do this. For the most part, I'll be talking into the microphone.
All right.
I've got it up.
Well, you're free, the audience is free to move around as needed.
Rev 1. Rev 1?
Perfect. Thank you, guys. And for the record, also, this is Andrew Tebow. Well, I'm with Goddard Consulting, the wetland scientist on the project. So I was previously with you guys at the April 10th meeting, introducing the teardown and rebuild here. And at that time, we had a pretty significant conversation with the commission and the neighbors. And since then, we have submitted 2 rounds of submittals to the commission. So I'm going to walk through sort of what happened originally, what we've done since, and then I'll kick it over to Dan to talk about some of the engineering that went into it. So at the last meeting, we had some pretty extensive conversations around the design of the project, where currently we had a subsurface infiltration system proposed in the rear of the yard. It was requiring about 4 feet of grading and some tree clearing through the back of the property. A lot of the questions that were centered around that were some of the significant 3-to-1, 4-to-1 slopes, the need for 4 feet of fill, concerns over water diversion, and then the potential to retain any trees that were on the property. So originally, on April 22nd, you guys received a letter where we had still showed the original design with the subsurface system in the rear of the yard, with a couple notes that under that design, which at the time we felt was favorable, we wouldn't be able to retain any of the trees back there. But what we had done is we added 2 more white oaks from the discussion with the commission at the previous meeting, and we increased the size of all the white oaks from 4 to 6 feet to 6 to 8 feet to provide more mitigation. So that came to you guys on April 22nd, and then the very next day, through the administrative review, Lucy had provided us an additional comment, asking us to take a second look at the front of the yard, knowing that it was tight, but seems like it might be possible to redesign the system to try to get it in the front yard and to alleviate some of these comments. And so what we did since then is...
Plus, some of the neighbors were requesting.
Yes, and that was a very big concern from the neighbors as well.
Right.
Absolutely, and so we took that into account, and so our engineer, Dan, now has come up with a new design where, with some grading in the front yard, we can get the system in the front yard and actually avoid retaining walls as well. So I will kick that over to him in a second to talk about the design and what went into it, but there are a few factors that kind of snowball from this that are also beneficial to the project that I want to note. Originally, when the system was in the backyard, this was going to require 4 feet of grading. It was going to make some larger slopes going towards the neighboring properties, the stream, and now we have significantly reduced the amount of fill that's going to be required in the backyard. So Dan provided updated profiles today that shows that there's a lot less fill going on back there. We're working with existing grades much easier, and that's been a significant improvement to the project. The other thing is, with the original proposal, when we had the subsurface system in the rear yard, none of those 15 trees that we had originally tabbed for removal were able to be retained. There was too much grading going on back there to be able to save any of those, and so we had increased the mitigation a little bit. Now that Dan's been able to move this to the front yard, there are 4 trees along the back of the property that we can now save, and those are all proposed to be retained. They are anywhere from about 10 to 12 feet off the property line. They're about 12 to 20-inch DBH oaks and maples, and because of the minimal grading back there, we don't have to go back all the way to the edge of the property, and we can retain those. We have still kept the original mitigation plan where we increased to 4 white oaks and increased the height of 6 to 8 feet. That remains. So these trees that we're being able to retain are just an additional 4 that now no longer have to come down with this project. So with the design that we see here, we originally proposed to take down 15 trees and plant a mix of 28 trees and shrubs. We've now reduced that to only 11 that come down in the rear yard, and we're replanting 30 trees and shrubs with the increased height for the white oaks. However, a lot of this is centered around stormwater, what went into this, the implications for this design. So for that, I'm going to kick it over to Dan.
Sure, of course. Thank you for having us here tonight. So just to run through the stormwater quickly, previously we did have the system in the rear. We have moved that to the front, as Andrew noted.
You can go up there and point if it's helpful to explain. If you
Okay, great, thank you. We have mitigated for the town's 100-year storm event. So the existing site versus the post site, we have mitigated stormwater runoff and also volume for the 100-year storm event. We are proposing some grading in the front in order to make that drainage system meet standards. So we do have to have that 2 feet separated from the estimated seasonal high groundwater table, which requires some grading within the front of the property. We tried to limit that to the best amount possible, but of course, there is, of course, some grading there. We have met the setbacks to the building foundation and also the property lines, which are required to be 10 feet. So we have met that standard, and the collection of essentially the driveway on the upper section and also the proposed rooftop would be collected and sent to stormwater mitigation. So that's the majority of the stormwater analysis. The first part of the driveway, as it sort of slopes up, we are proposing sort of isolated French drains in that particular area only, just because it is a challenge to be able to get those to the stormwater system and not have a situation where, as that system fills, it comes out of those French drains. So we made those isolated for that very reason. And that's generally it. As far as the grading in the rear, we are proposing some grading. We do have to make sure the land grades away from the house. The house is also elevated because the groundwater table is high, so we want to meet the town's bylaw on that. We can't get above the estimated seasonal high, but we can get at the estimated seasonal high.
For what? The
For the,
basement
basement,
So
basement
you're
floor.
yeah, the
We're at
basement
it.
is at the estimated seasonally high.
Correct, exactly.
Okay, let's make sure we understand. Okay.
Yeah, of course. And the top of foundation, as is proposed today, is about 5.5 feet higher than the existing roadway. So there really isn't any flexibility for us to go higher. Otherwise, that would cause more grading throughout the site, which I know is a concern. So we sort of tried to balance those standards the best we could to come up with the best solution here, so.
Okay, Eileen, or Lucy, do you have residual concerns, and do you have comments on what you've heard so far?
You guys at the last meeting asked to check out moving the chambers to the front. Hybrid contouring was something we talked about if they were going to leave them in the back, which they are not anymore. You wanted them to save more trees, they're proposing to save more trees. You wanted the profiles, which they've provided. You talked about more shading along the stream, which 2 more trees planted might provide that depending on where they're going. I haven't fully inspected where all the trees are going. That you wanted to extend them the plantings along the driveway, which I do believe in their write-up, they said is not possible given space constraints, and evaluate if a sump pump was needed. That is the only outstanding thing on your guys' list that you were looking to have addressed. It might have been addressed in the report and I missed it. But as I've reviewed this, I haven't fully had time to read all the way through it, just given that we received this earlier today.
Right, this latest
And with
thing.
the wealth of papers we've had this week.
Yes.
But as it sits, they have addressed a lot of your original questions.
Okay, a lot of people had issues with the grading, how much filling was going on. Could you explain what you had for contour lines in the back and now what you have?
Sure, I'm going to stand up for that.
Issue for as far as, I think some of the neighbors, they were concerned about that, about how much we're filling. So how much of a change or how much better is it?
Sure, of course. I'm just going to stand up for that if I can.
And you know now that it's a touchscreen, and you can probably just move it.
Oh, great, excellent.
Oh, you may have missed that earlier, that excitement.
That's great.
That is exciting.
You can pick that
Kinda
up, you can
was.
pick up the microphone.
I don't see that very often. That's why I always bring these.
And talk into it.
So what we're proposing for grading in the front of the property, so you can see the stormwater system here, the existing grade at 102, so it's a fill of about 4 feet to be able to accommodate the system itself. The chambers are 33 inches tall. There's also stone under them and stone over them. So that's a very large stormwater chamber system. That's essentially probably from about the ground to here as far as what we're going to be burying within the ground. In order to meet the town's bylaw for getting the basement floor above the estimated seasonal high groundwater, we had to slope the driveway a bit in order to get up in here, to be able to accommodate those slopes and, grades. And then throughout the rear of the property,
What were the contours and what are they now?
Sure. So coming up the driveway there, that was at 102, and we're proposing to be 104 at this location. So that's about, it's a little bit far away from that contour. So it's about a 1.5 foot difference. And we're also proposing, there it goes. We're also proposing a small retaining wall on this side that's basically needed because we can't slope the driveway this way when we have garage doors here because we have to hold that elevation. And so essentially, we only have this space here in order to break that grade. And so that's kind of really the filling over here. And then in the rear of the property, we have contours around 102, and we're proposing about 103.8 in order to get that slope away from the house. We also have to meet the town's building code to bury 50% of the basement. Otherwise, it's considered a story. So we want to make sure that we comply with that and ensure that that's filled up against that foundation to meet that standard. But what we've done with the proposed grading in the rear is allowed for the existing sloping that's coming towards this lot to freely drain across it. So we're not proposing any grades that are going to be proud of the existing neighbor that's on this side here. The only place we're doing that is where the stormwater system's going, because we absolutely have to. We don't have a choice in that location to be able to meet standard and be able to bury the system, so.
All right, very good, thank you.
Yeah, great.
Thank you. So let's, Eileen, do you have anything else on what you just heard,
Oh, well.
on the grading?
This is
Lucy?
Lucy's one, but I like the fact that, if you don't mind me just saying, that I appreciate the fact that they listened to what everybody was saying and the concerns that we all had about several of us had, about the grading in the rear. And they've really tried to minimize that by just keeping it to one spot in the front, which is already a little bit higher, right? That's what you were explaining?
Correct.
So there's a little bit less grading that'll have to happen.
It also pushes it out of the buffer zone.
And pushes it out of the buffer zone.
Okay,
I like
so
it.
we'll go to the commission and see if there's questions or comments. Kent?
I mean, the stuff came so late, I didn't have a full chance to review or digest. It's a lot of information to kind of absorb, so.
Okay, let's see, Ed, anything?
No, where you just mentioned the back of the house, everything is coming from above and going down that way. Where is it ending up?
It's ending up at the wetland area right at the bottom of the plan there. So it also naturally sheds in that general direction.
Towards the corner of the plan at the bottom of the drawing.
Correct, yes. Yep.
Okay. All right, Rob?
I guess in the event of a very heavy rainfall from the roof, it looks like in the lower corner, which does the drain, like what direction does the flow come off that drain? It looks like it's going to come down towards the French drain, towards the retaining wall there, and then there's another drain that sort of goes around the house to the chambers.
Is that in this direction, the land are you talking about?
Yeah, there's the line dash D with the drain.
Oh, so those are the, so basically the way that the stormwater is flowing to the chambers is that the driveway is sloping in this direction here. It gets collected by a French drain. That then drains across, and then we pick up the rooftop as we go around the dwelling. Then that all goes to the mitigation system.
Okay, so you anticipate the flow going in that.
This direction,
like
yes.
that counterclockwise direction.
Correct.
And then you have there's like a stop valve, so it won't prevent a street.
Exactly. So what I was concerned with is, as this is filling up, I don't want it to be a situation where it's going to flow out of the French drain and go down the existing, or the actual proposed driveway. So I wanted to propose, to basically block that from happening, so that the system would have to, basically the water level would have to be higher than the, proposed stormwater mitigation in order for that water to come back out the other direction, so.
Okay, Sarah?
I listened to I wasn't at the original meeting on April 10th, but I listened to the meeting and was really concerned about the tree removal I heard about. It looks like you've made a real effort to mitigate that, which is great. We've heard a lot in meetings like this about misery caused by neighbors when a bunch of mature trees are removed and people are really worried about water. So the more trees you keep, the better. I wondered if there's any way of getting less grading in the front by using a more compact StormTech chamber. Is there anything shorter than 33 inches, which is so tall?
There is,
Not
yes.
enough, given the space.
Yeah, that's kind of the issue we have, is that we're right against those 10-foot setbacks, and then we have to have water and sewer going into the dwelling, as well as there's a proposed propane tank in the front, and also the driveway sort of goes around an existing utility pole. So we really were sort of confined for space. But excellent question, yeah.
So you can't, because it's so small, you can't use like the SC 160 chamber?
We could, we just wouldn't be able to meet the town's 100-year
Right.
storm
There's
event.
not enough space.
There wouldn't be enough space, yeah, exactly.
All right, so you have to, you either have it one way or the other.
Exactly, yes.
Otherwise, it would have to go in back.
Right.
Okay, got it. Indra, anything? Bill?
The one remaining question I still have is, why a propane tank and not connect to natural gas?
That's probably a question for the client. I don't know if.
Yeah, there's no natural gas there. I think it's.
There is not?
Like 300. It ends at Beaverbrook and Fox Hill.
Oh, that's exactly where I live, and I have gas, so I assumed it went all the way up the
Yeah,
street.
no, the only problem with that is
I just made it.
Unfortunately, it ends at Beaverbrook and Fox Hill.
Okay, I
So
didn't
it's
know
like-
that.
I don't remember the distance, but it's around, I think, $348 a foot.
Yeah, no,
So-
it's not worth it if it's not already there. I thought it went all the way to the school, okay. Thank you for enlightening me on that one.
Yeah.
All set?
Yeah.
At the last meeting of this project, we talked about evaluating whether a sump pump would be needed, and we were going to get input from you on that. Did you say something about that, or did I miss it?
I didn't, but the folks who are going to be building this did recommend a sump pump, so they are going to
So
propose
there will be a sump pump?
That's correct, yes.
Is that in the plan somewhere?
I don't think it's going to run an awful lot. We are proposing to send it to the stormwater chambers. They are designed for the 100-year storm event, which...
But I mean, is there some documentation of that that's on the plan?
There isn't. There is not, no.
It is in the April 22nd letter. We had clarified that there will be sump pumps installed.
Okay, so it's in the...
Yep, yeah, I gave you a narrative that had answered that question as
Okay,
part of the
that's
supplemental.
fine. Okay.
Yep.
And is there any concern for the chamber in front that I mean, it looks like you got some grading. Do you have any concern based on your engineering that the water could break out the sides at all through those slopes?
We do, yes, and that's why we're going to be proposing a plastic barrier on the neighbor side, so that'll run from grade and go all the
So they won't see
way.
water breaking out going onto their property?
Correct, yes. So we are proposing essentially a, plastic wall on that side to ensure that the water
And that will
doesn't.
keep the water going down?
Correct, yes,
Got it,
exactly.
Got it, okay. Did you, we just got it, so I'm not, did you get more detail or retaining wall profile that was mentioned? Did you?
We didn't. It is only, let's say, 2-foot wall, so it's a small little landscape wall that like a landscaper would do. Essentially, blocks would be stacked unless they are able to find stones on the
I can
site.
imagine what a stack of 2-foot blocks look like.
Yeah, fair enough, yeah.
Okay, all right.
Well, no, it would be, those basically landscape blocks.
Right, and they're just offset a little bit as it goes up.
Correct, exactly, yep.
The driveway is draining to it as well?
The upper part of the driveway is, yes, and then the section that's sloping up, we are proposing French drains on both sides, and it will be crowned to allow that water to flow into those French drains that are on the edges.
So what maintenance would you expect for the infiltration chamber?
The chamber itself, 4 times a year, they'll be inspecting it through the inspection ports, and then also 4 times a year, they'll be cleaning it at the base of the downspouts. We created a whole plan for that. It was about a 6 or 7-page document to ensure that it gets maintained properly and ensures the system functions for the long term, so.
And just by way of summarize, in back, you were originally raising it 4 feet. So now, how much are you raising it?
In the rear, it's almost 2 feet, maybe a little bit less than
About
that.
half, the amount of
Yeah.
filling in back is
1.8 feet
half.
around.
Yeah, it does, it varies throughout, but roughly about 1.5-ish.
Okay. Is there an isolator roll in the infiltration, and do you need it for this application?
There currently isn't. That's something we would do more when there's a location where they could put a jetter in to clean that isolator row. It's more like used in parking lots where you get a lot of grit going into the system.
Yeah, you don't often see it in residential too much.
You usually don't. Sometimes we will show it, but whenever we do, I want to make sure that the truck could physically get to it to
Right.
jet the isolator row. And in this case, it'd be really difficult for a vehicle to be able to
Got it,
access that, so.
I don't think I've ever seen one on a single family.
Right.
Not ever.
Right. I know, I'm not saying I want it, I'm just asking about it. I think that covered a lot of the concerns I heard from the neighbors. There may be something we missed, but we can hear from them if there is. I tried to go through the list.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah, go right ahead.
So you said you are providing the sump pump, right?
Yes, we are, yes.
So where you are connected?
It'd be connected to the stormwater system.
Stormwater system.
Yes, yeah.
Thank you.
Does the stormwater system have an overflow, by the way?
It does not, it does not.
You wouldn't, there's no place to overflow it either.
Correct, yeah.
So it's designed for what storm?
100-year storm event.
All right, let's see if there's anybody has residual questions in the audience. Probably, I think I see some people. So why don't you come on up, and you could,
Can offer this microphone if they need it.
yeah, they need a microphone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So,
Here, you want
hi there.
Thank you. Hi.
So please introduce yourself and state, your residence too, please.
Sure. I'm Bernadette St. John. I live at 239 Fox Hill
Yes.
Road, which is across the street.
Yes.
And I've been there since about 2023. I had submitted something earlier this week, concerns that I had related to removal of trees in the fill, and issues I've had with flooding in my yard when that was done recently, a couple of houses down. So I'm happy to see the changes relative to the fill and to not removing as many trees. I would like, if possible, some time to review the new plans, since I hadn't seen anything until they just presented them now. I did see their earlier
I
comments.
don't believe we're closing tonight, so
Perfect.
there'll be 2 more weeks.
Perfect.
And the hearing will stay open.
Perfect. And then just a question on the sump pump. So particularly if the basement is at that groundwater level, I'm one of those people that has a sump pump that runs very frequently. And I think that, I know they say that they don't expect the pump to run frequently, but if it's at that level, I wonder if it is going to. And if it's going into the storm tech system, does that, even though that's been sized for the 100-year storm, is you really still expect it to drain in 72 hours after an event if the sump pump is continually running into it?
We'll let Mr. Dragani.
Of course, yeah, excellent question. So we did calculate the drawdown. We're less than 24 hours. Typically, the groundwater will raise after the storm events. So usually, you have a case where that pump is running after the system has dealt with the rain from the event. So you have like basically like a delayed response for that groundwater to raise up. But there certainly could be a situation where sort of like the perfect storm happens and you do have an issue, but the system is quite large. I feel pretty confident that it should be able to handle it, so.
Okay, well, I look forward to seeing the revised plans.
Yeah.
Great.
Thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thanks for your comments. Someone
Thank
else,
you.
please come up. Hi there.
Hello. My name is Lauren Madron, and I live at,
And thank you for submitting your comments in writing. It was a lot easier to absorb that pages of stuff.
I'll talk slower tonight. And I live at 236.
That would be good.
I live at 236 Fox Hill Road.
Sure.
And I did have a chance to review the revised plans earlier that were submitted this afternoon. I still have some concerns. I really appreciate the consideration to moving the storm tech drain to the management system to the front of the house.
Sure.
And I know they indicated there'd be less fill in the back, but the plans continue to show the raising of the grade of the property pretty significantly. I know Bernadette St. John also alluded to this, but when the owners of 243 Fox Hill Road brought in fill to level their backyard, at the time there were no wetlands on their property. However, the grading change disrupted the natural drainage patterns, which resulted in standing water, flooded yards and basements, and increased mosquito activity on the properties on both Fox Hill Road and Sumner Street. The consequences led to a formal citation from the Board of Health.
We're not in a rush.
Sorry.
You can slow it down. It's okay.
So, due to the increase in mosquito activity and the flooding of the basements, they were issued a formal citation by the Board of Health, and it was upheld after an appeal by the homeowners.
This is what number?
243 Fox Hill Road, so just
okay.
a couple houses down.
Okay, that's fine.
I think this example just demonstrates how delicate the balance of water management is in our neighborhood. We live in an area with a high water table and established wetlands. Any changes to ground elevation or grading has a ripple effect. The Board of Health also has regulations regarding alterations to drainage characteristics and land disturbance, in particular force and direction of runoff, and changes in elevation and drainage patterns, all of which apply here. My home already sits downhill from 238 Fox Hill Road. The land in my backyard is well drained, my yard is not marshy, and my basement remains dry without a sump pump or a French drain. The natural slope of the land, including the intermittent stream that runs behind it, plays a crucial role in managing runoff if 238 raises the grade of their property by the proposed, I think it was 3.8 feet within the buffer zone, it could redirect significant runoff toward my property, and the property of our neighbors, leading to flooding, structural damage, and disruption to the natural wetlands. I am very concerned about directing untreated runoff towards my property and towards the stream. I'm particularly concerned about runoff of chemical lawn fertilizers that I'm sure will be used for the new lawn. I just urge the commission to require the applicant look at reducing the amount of fill in the buffer zone to be closer or at existing conditions. I believe the applicants are acting in good faith, and I believe they have more considerations to make for the real-life consequences for our neighboring properties of this development. I urge them to revisit their plans and work collaboratively to find a solution that respects the natural setting and the fragile balance of water regulation in this area. And I thank the committee for their time and the commitment to the wetlands in our neighborhoods.
All right, so thank you for your comments, but let's see if there's any discussion to ensue here. Mr. Dragani, that's how you pronounce it?
Yes, it is,
Yeah,
yes.
Could you comment on where the discharge, the water flows towards her property, but where does it really enter her property in relation to her house and her property? Isn't it towards the back, I thought, is where?
I
Could you
don't-
explain that?
Yeah, of course. So let me stand.
And any other comments you want to make? So you can just sit right there, and if you have follow-up
You need
questions,
to
you
see
can
the
ask.
existing plan to, or are you good with this?
Should be fine. I think proposed is okay. So the existing drainage pattern,
You can pick that up and just hold.
yeah, it's a little short, though. That's the
Is it?
thing. Yeah, that's all we got. So the existing pattern of basically water that's running over land is in this direction here. We have maintained that with the proposed grading changes that we did propose on the plan here. So we are still showing that, basically free draining water, allowing it to flow in that direction. And we are changing the grading in the front, as I mentioned before, for the stormwater system.
So this is where the water drains towards the same place it does now?
Correct, yes.
Okay, and
In the same amount or less?
The existing water coming, yes, correct, yes.
it would be the same amount or less because the stormwater is being handled out front. Is that the reason you say that?
Well, it depends on if the question is related to off-site water flowing across this site or this site stormwater. I don't know what the preface of that question would be. Are we talking about the flow of water across this site coming from the abutters property or the mitigation of the?
The existing site has a certain flow, and it was going to potentially increase if the infiltrators were in back. Now, the additional stormwater from a larger house is in front. So the question I think somebody asked is, how does the water from the backyard now, given that circumstance, compare with the existing? There's not much change, is there?
No, there isn't. There
Is
isn't much.
is that true? I mean, I don't want to, I don't want to speak for you. You need to speak.
Yeah, of course. So pre versus post stormwater, we are showing a reduction in rate and also volume throughout the whole site. So the whole site modeled, we're showing a reduction.
Because you're taking all of the stormwater and putting it up front.
Putting it underground, correct. Yeah.
Okay, do you have any questions, further questions on it?
Well, I'd like to see that study. You said you did a study, yes?
It's on the website.
Is it?
Yep.
They have it?
Yep.
Yeah, it's on the website.
It's on the stormwater report. They do all the calculations. The pre and the post are there, and the post should always be less than the pre.
So from the 22nd, when there was no change to the grade, to the 24th today, this was done? Because the water,
You want to, why don't you come up, if you want to come up? Because you should state your name again for the record, and then of course, you're free to talk.
Okay, my name is Grace Madron, and I live at 31 Phillip Ave in Burlington.
31 Phillip, so you
That's
were
right.
related?
Yes, we
my
are.
mother.
Oh, it's a family affair.
Yeah.
Great.
So I guess when I looked at the first rendition of changes, there was no change to the system. It was in the back, all right? And there was a 4-foot, at least 4 feet of grading.
That was a new system, though. When you say there was no change, there was a change because there was no system there before.
That's true. Okay, so okay, and then we moved it, all right, agreed. Then we moved it to the front of the house. And the land, see, what I'm concerned with is the land is already the house sits several feet higher than my daughter's property. So the water runoff, we were concerned that it would, water runs downhill, that it would flow down into her property. So that was our major concern. And so with it, if the elevation, I know they reduced it, but it didn't seem that significant to me. They were saying 2, but it varied in different
Well, it
locations.
seems like it was about half. Before, they were filling 4 feet and back. Now they're
Yeah.
less than half.
Yeah, I think there were some areas that were still a little higher than half, right?
Correct, yeah, just so I can clarify a little bit, so the drainage flows coming off the site are mostly dependent on, pavement, rooftops, things like that, and not the grass areas. So generally speaking, we could mount, well, I know more than generally, definitively speaking, we could put the stormwater system in the back, and we still had a reduction in stormwater rate and flow, both. So there's such small isolated areas when you do isolated grading that as long as you're accounting for that in collection of water from elsewhere, sometimes you need to collect and store more of that water than you would if you are doing grading, because you have to show that in the calculations. But, just to kind of clarify, we always proposed a reduction in rate and also volume throughout this site with the previous design and this design here.
So so the discharge point for the site is at the bottom of the drawing?
Correct,
And
yes.
so what is the reduction in rate and volume?
So for the 100-year storm event, the volume is reduced by about 15%, roughly speaking.
Okay.
Might be 15, 14.
And how about that's the volume, how about the peak rate of runoff?
The rate was like 20 to 25% for the 100-year storm.
25% less?
Yes, less.
Whoa.
Yep. Because the water
That
is,
should be a substantial benefit.
rate is dependent on not collecting the water and letting it run off. So if you think of like a really tall hill, right? If we're collecting that water with, let's say, catch basins and French drains, as it comes down the hill, we're able to mitigate that rate because we slow the water down, right? But in a case where you don't do that, you have a high rate. So in this case, we're collecting all of those impervious areas, putting them to a mitigation system, which dramatically reduces the rate, which is why you're seeing such a reduction in rate. It's because we're collecting almost every single square foot of, impervious area, whether rooftop or driveway.
Okay. And you don't anticipate the different slopes to run down the hill into my daughter's property?
I don't. Now,
I mean, I just
go
did- yeah.
back to the plan.
Can we go back to the plan, please?
Yep.
So you're on which side again?
236, so we're on the side of the driveway.
The south side?
Yeah.
So the water currently today, before we, propose any development here, is flowing in this direction, and it will remain to flow in that direction. The difference is that we're collecting everything from the driveway in this area here and also the rooftop, and diverting all of that water further away, so that that's mitigated to there. So you can kind of think of it as the green areas that are coming in that direction. And it isn't possible to mitigate sort of every square foot of a parcel, but we are reducing that. for that.
Especially wooded and grass areas, it's.
Correct, yeah.
I mean,
It's very hard to get every single square inch, and so, if this wasn't in Burlington, Burlington has a very good stormwater bylaw, but some towns don't, and in that case, they're actually exempt when they come in for these applications with the town. They're exempt from stormwater regulations. And if they're not taken up by a town's bylaw, they don't have to propose this, or if they do, it's a lot smaller. Like in this case, that drainage system is larger than this whole opening in between the tables here, right? Or maybe about the same size, and probably taller, probably another foot and a half. So it stores a lot of water.
And could you tell them what a 100-year storm is in 24 hours?
Sure, it's 8.9 inches of rain.
Okay, it's almost 9 inches of rain. I mean, we don't get that very often, but 9 inches of rain, that's what this is designed for. And I've been on the commission a very long time, and in the older days, we never designed these systems in residences for a 100-year storm. It was either the 10 or the 25. And so that's substantially less water it was designed for. And then if it got larger than that, then everything floods. But now there seems to be the practice of designing these systems for a 100-year storm, which is a lot of water.
So, if I
Yes,
may?
please.
So you are changing the slope at the back?
Yeah, it's actually getting a little bit flatter throughout the upper back part. So in here, it's getting flatter and just ever so slightly flowing in this direction to get away from that foundation.
That's why the runoff is
Correct,
less.
yes, exactly. And then there's a little bit of a steeper slope just at the edge here in this location.
There is one thing I do want to just quickly bring to our attention. It only piggybacks off of Dan's comments, but it is to a slight benefit that the wetland system in question on this site is actually an intermittent stream channel, and it is delivering surface water away. And a lot of times when we have stagnant wetlands in the back of properties, it becomes more concerned about groundwater sitting and rising. Surface water does continue to move here, and the stream does dry out at certain times of the year. So anytime where the water elevation is higher is when this is flowing, and it is pitching away from these properties.
We're going to go to you in a second. Let's see if these people have any, do you have any more follow-up at this? The materials are available for you to look at. of
Yes.
course, And we have 2 weeks.
Thank you.
And we can get questions to them if, between now and then, if you have questions through the office. We could transmit a question to
Okay.
them.
All right.
We don't have to necessarily wait, and then they can air it. They'll have it ahead of time, so they're not sort of caught then.
And some of them we can probably just answer because we can
Yeah.
Sure.
kind of read it.
Thank you.
So feel free to engage with our office.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Eileen and Lucy. So there's one more person. She has another question.
Just to follow up.
Sure.
So I'm one of the people that, when they talked about the 243 Fox Hill Road and what had happened there, my backyard floods since all of that happened. I had submitted something earlier that included pictures of the backyard. I didn't go into all of that because I figured we'd look at the changed plans before raising any of that again. But the one thing I would request is, I have tracked during that time between December of 2023 and February or March of 2024, when we had so much rain, right? And, I don't know how that, equates to a 100-year storm, but if you could say, if we had that rain again, which we will, during that kind of a period, would this system have mitigated it? Would any runoff have happened off of the property, or would it have all been taken care of in the storm tech system?
Yeah, I mean, one way to answer that would be the system is calculated to drain in less than 24 hours. The soils are better than we thought throughout this site. And so if those storm events are more than 24 hours apart, the system should be able to, recover between those events in order to handle that water. And if the groundwater were to rise above where its high is today, the system would essentially fill up and basically detain the water for that period of time.
So it would act as storage until such time as it receded?
Yeah, and it just depends
what-
if you got back-to-back, like within 12 hours.
Which is what we did. So one of the challenges,
Hard,
if you
yeah.
could look at that, I can show you the days where we did get more than an inch a day. I think we had 8 inches of rain in December and March and 5 in January, and that's obviously much higher than typical.
They have addressed rainfalls up to about 10 inches. So
In a
In a
24-hour period.
what I'm saying is,
There isn't,
but it's.
that's as
the-
high as we can ask them to do, reasonably.
What you're
But what I've seen is the
saying
rain
is
isn't
you had a
24
lot of
hours.
water that was
It's-
cumulative, 1 inch, 1.5 inch, 1 inch.
3 days in a row, 4 days in a row, yeah.
But the way this system, I understand the system operates, what I heard him say is it recovers and then drains. It recovers and then drains
In 24 hours.
in 24 hours.
If there's additional rain in that following 24 hours?
Well,
Or if there's no rain in that following 24 hours?
Well, you're talking about a 1-inch storm, okay, repeatedly. A 1-inch storm is considered the two-year storm?
Roughly, yeah.
It's roughly it's considered a 2-year storm. This system is, from what I am hearing, I'm not trying to make you a guarantee, okay?
Right.
Is well oversized compared to that scenario.
So that's why I was asking if maybe they could confirm that based on the data I provided, Because I understand it if you're saying it's 8 inches in 24 hours. No, it wasn't 8 inches in 24 hours, but it was more than an inch 3 days in a row, or a few days in a row, right? So I guess what I'm trying to understand is the difference between it all happening in 24 hours and you having significant inches of rain over multiple days in a row.
My
So,
understanding of a stormwater system is that it would be extremely well equipped to do an inch of rain one day, an inch of rain the next day, an inch of rain the next day, especially if it can take 3 inches in one day. Would that not make sense?
That's correct, yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
So if it can take 3 inches in one day, it can absolutely take it over 36 hours, or, sorry, 72 or whatever it is, because it's draining that down all the way.
You're saying that 3 inches in one day is a far worse scenario than repeatedly
Yes.
1 inch every 24 hours.
And this is designed to handle 10 inches in one day.
So
So if
take-
you got 2, 2, 2, and 2, which is ridiculous, it still would handle it, because it could handle that all that in one day, let alone
Unless you
spread
get-
over 4 days.
What if you get over the integrated number, though?
You'd
Then
have
it
to
would-
get more than 10 before this
So what
thing
if
would
you
be
had
challenged.
6
things
days in a
to-
row,
if
too?
it-
Would
because
then
the-
you be up a tree?
No, because it would continue to, it would drain.
Yeah.
They can't design for the end of the world.
Well,
And
You would see the
assuming,
entire town flooded at that point. That's substantial.
or at least
assuming
the entire
that,
street.
that was the case, so if you had that event, if you didn't build this house, the condition of the existing property may be worse than what this is. I'd have to model it to check, but the existing property has nothing, right? It all just runs off. The gutters just flow away. So I'd have to look at it, but it is possible that that existing condition could be worse than this. I just would have to look into it.
Right, and the way we ask for technical input is they're doing the 100-year storm. That's a very severe case, very severe. And even in the scenario you're talking about, nothing like that happened. Okay, you had a lot of water collectively, but not a 100-year storm. Essentially, you're talking a hurricane.
Okay.
But you also have a different disbursement now with that design. All the water is staying in the same place in the green coming down to this corner. But there's also now on the left side where the driveway is, it's pulling that water back up into your drain area there. So there is some compensation there, that it's not all headed here like it was, or increasing seriously like it might, if I'm right there.
You know, and it doesn't mean that when you get day in and day out rain and day in, my house has had numerous problems, okay? We've had water leaking in, we've had all kinds of things. It doesn't mean it doesn't cause problems, but we're talking about this specific circumstance and what they're proposing, okay? And if you have additional questions after you decide, if you decide to look at the materials, you should get them to Eileen, either she'll answer them or we'll get the answer for you,
Very good.
okay?
Yep, thank you.
Okay, I'm not trying to shut off your concern or your questions.
Very good.
All right, thanks. Yes, come on up.
John Porter, 237 Fox Hill Road across the street. Question for Dan or Andrew. I can't see what the elevation, what will be the finished grade elevation above the storage tech?
It is 106.5.
Okay, so the street's at 99.5, right in front of the driveway. That's where the sewer lid is, and the street flows up a little bit, maybe 6 inches. So let's say the street's at 100 in front of the storm tech drains, and you just said what, 106.5?
106.5, and that sewer manhole's at 100.5.
100.5. Oh, I thought it was at 99.5. Okay, so 100.5 will become, say, 101 in front of the storage stack, and then you just said 106.5. The difference between those two numbers is 5.5. Am I right so far?
Yes.
And so we have to get from the street to the top of those storage, what are they called? Storage tech?
Storm tech, yep.
Storm tech reservoirs. We have to deal with a delta of 5.5 feet. Feels like it's going to look like a shed in the front yard, isn't it? Is there going to be a retaining wall that has to go in front of those
So it's-
Storage tech units?
It's proposed as a 3-to-1 slope, so for every 3 feet horizontal, we go 1 foot up. So you can
Okay,
kind of
3 to 1.
envision that slope across.
Okay.
And
Okay.
That's really the
question.
max for grass.
Okay,
You have to
thank you for your
mow it
comment.
and such, so.
All right, anyone else have a follow-up they'd like to, sure, come on up. Hi there.
Hello, my name is David LaRock. I live at 236 Fox Hill Road. I know there's a lot of us here today. I'm going to be submitting a formal letter. I just had a lot, and I want to give you guys a couple points. I'm happy with the change to the storm tech system being in the front. The grading being a little bit less than the 6 feet it was before is good. 2 feet to 4 feet per the plans is still kind of a lot draining into our property, but if it doesn't cause any problems, that's okay with me. Obviously, if it does cause problems, that's a problem. But I'm still concerned with the removal of the trees, with the different trees being removed versus the new plants and the new trees being added. Still don't think it's sufficient enough for the amount of water that it should be soaking up. If you guys are saying that the storm tech system will get the remaining, then I'd love to read through it again, and if I missed it on the documentation. The other thing that I noticed was in the original notice of intent to build, the photo 5, which was taken on my property of the soil, showed a depleted subsoil, which has less water drainage, less airflow through the soil. So I'm not sure if once the water does get into the soil, if it's just going to continually drain further onto my property. So that's one thing I do want to take a look at. And then,
You're,
yep, good.
you're at what address again?
236.
So you're next to this?
Yep, I'm the ones with the wetland with the flow.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, so the same property as?
Yes.
Okay, that's,
Yeah.
okay. All right, that's fine. I want to make sure I understood this, okay?
That's okay. The other thing is, on that drawing there, note 3 shows that this is just it doesn't show the exact property lines. If there was a PLS stamp, then we can get the actual property lines. I'm not sure if the design would have to be moved based on actual property lines. So I request the commission to urge that they actually do a property line survey before they do end up building.
Comment on this, please?
Sure, of course. So we did have a survey done, and that is what we used for an AutoCAD file, is from the property survey that was done by the PLS. They do have a stamped plan. They just don't stamp on our plan and show all of their work because it just gets too busy. So we have 2 separate plans. So we'll do the civil plan and then the PLS plan, which is more of like a building department plan, separate from what we do.
So are we going to be able to see that, or?
I assume.
I assume you can go to the building department and look at it?
Yeah.
right?
Okay.
Well,
Absolutely. Can't you? Or-
They probably don't have it
it's
yet.
online now.
Yeah.
We can send it to you if you
can
ask
get
us.
it. Yeah, we can
Well,
get
when
it.
it goes in, we can send it to you.
Yeah.
We can get it, yeah.
Okay.
All right, so can we
Get a copy
send,
of it, yeah.
can we send this out or make it available to this individual before the next meeting?
I don't know, is it done?
It is, yeah. We can get it to them, yeah.
Okay.
No problem.
Okay.
Okay.
That's really all I had, so.
All right, thank you for your comments.
Can I just ask, just for a clarification on his question, when he was talking about the depleted soil, does he mean wetland? I'm not sure what he meant.
It was a hydric soil, so it was during
Okay.
it was during the wetland delineation. Just the stream right along the banks of it, just where it's low lying, has some depleted soils within it.
Right, but that's normal for,
Oh, absolutely.
That's
And this is actually it's a sandy soil underneath too. So although it's depleted because of the water presence, it's actually a well draining material when the groundwater is not there.
right.
Yep.
Okay.
All right.
Anyone else? This is one interested neighborhood, clearly.
Yeah.
I pick them right.
Yeah, I sort of get that. And, I guess if you have water problems in the area, I understand why you're here. So, all right. Was there anybody online that wants to talk about this?
Not that they're indicating. 2 of these people are for next agenda items. I don't know.
All right. Okay, so could I have a motion to continue the hearing for 238 Fox Hill Road, DEP file number 122-718, to the meeting of May 8th?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All those in favor? That's 7-0. Okay, thank you all for all your time you've spent. And if you're still interested, we'll see you May 8th.
I know,
All right. Thank you.
And thank you
for
guys
your
all for
time.
the time here.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Appreciate
it.
it.
All right.
that was my law, my vote.
You guys can get home soon. Thank you.
All right.
Great night.
I assumed that they would, in my estimates, otherwise we would try to do that.
Okay, next. We have 1 Thornton Drive.
Oh, they're probably online. Heather is online. Darn.
Okay, this is a violation enforcement issue. Eileen, this was for taking down some trees that had Dutch elm disease, was it?
Right, let me just remind everybody, we discussed it a little bit the last time. These folks had some trees that were not doing well on their property. They had a tree company come along and they said, yeah, we can take those down. They chopped a leader that was hanging that we absolutely would have let them take down anyway, and they took down 6 trees right very close to her on the stream bank, which the tree company said had Dutch elm disease. The one tree that I could see, because some of the bark was stripped presumably by the tree company, had visible markings that did look like it was Dutch elm disease. So I'm happy to accept that that's what it was. But they had been led to believe they didn't need to do any filings with us, but as we all now know, it's actually a violation. So they've been very happy to work with us. What they would like, oh, that was it. We left it last week that I was going to look up some more about Dutch elm disease and what they could do with the trees. And for those of you who were out at the site visit yesterday already heard this. We found that they can retain the logs on site because they like to reuse them for edge walkways, as long as they strip the bark. And
Because it's infested.
right, because it's the
Right.
bark itself that houses them. And they also, we also wondered whether they could or should leave the stumps in place, and the stumps are fine to leave in place as long as you attempt to at least strip the bark there. They did their absolute best to strip the bark from the stumps as well. As I said, they've been working with us. The tree company really delayed things a bit. They are happy to, if we wish, if you wish, they're happy to replant some trees. They have some suggestions, which they gave to me a couple of weeks ago, but I actually have a couple of concerns with the species, which we can talk about. But what we did was we drafted an enforcement order just because they want to do some further work on their property, and they can do that under an RDA.
Yes.
But if we make this an enforcement order, then we can ensure that they plant the trees. I trust that they will plant the trees, but we have all had issues before with not everybody doing exactly as they.
All right, so we're just going to move ahead today with the enforcement order, and you have a draft here.
We do, and then are you happy with me, just me and Lucy, working with the applicant?
Schwabels.
I wasn't sure what to call you guys.
So this person who's online here,
Yep.
you want to state your name for the record and,
Sure. Hi, I'm Heather Schwabel. I live at 1 Thornton Drive.
okay, and you're the owner there?
I am, my husband and I.
All right, I wasn't quite sure that if this was someone they hired or not.
Oh, no, sorry, this is the homeowner, this is
Okay,
Heather.
that's fine.
The,
So Eileen, what are you suggesting? Are you suggesting that you work with the owner to create a plan?
not exactly. They had proposed some species that they would like to replace. Is something wrong?
No, I was just, was this the gentleman that came to the last meeting?
Yes.
Yeah, that was my husband.
He was, but then some of you wanted to see the site.
Okay, yeah.
So it just got moved along. I was saying they had some tree proposals, but one of them is like the Kentucky coffee tree, which it's kind of dubious as to whether it's actually native to this area.
That's fine. We can take that off the list. We're not wed to it. We just wanted to see that what we were suggesting were things that you guys were happy with.
And it was the same with something I forgot to look up, but I did just earlier, was the false indigo. Again, just I'd be happier if it was something that was local to this area. Why don't I share
Sure.
the enforcement order, because that way we can move this along, and I think they'll be happy to just get this underway.
Sure.
All right. So Heather, I don't think I shared this with you earlier, but it's pretty simple, and if you have any questions, just, we can deal with them. So.
Okay.
It was Eric and Heather Schweibel. They have been working with us very nicely. Thank you very much. So the extent of the activity is unauthorized cutting of trees in the riverfront area under the Burlington bylaw within 100-foot buffer to bank and bordering vegetated wetland. We've checked the box to say the finding was conducted in an area subject to protection. We are suggesting that the property owner cease and desist from this activity, which all they did was strip the bark, which they did with my blessing. And resource area alterations shall be corrected. And the way to do that would be to replant some trees. That's what I'm proposing. Replant 6 native trees, but we can talk about numbers. Each a minimum of 2-inch caliper within the resource area. Consult with the Conservation Department in tree selection. The stumps of cut trees may be left in place, and cut logs with bark removed may be left on site. And then there's a space just so you know, Heather, there's a space where the commissioners sign it if they choose to vote to accept this tonight.
Okay, and by filing this thing, does it hurt us in the future for like things that we're trying to do otherwise? I don't want to create an issue for myself in the future for things that I want to
If
do.
we're not filing it, we would be issuing it, and you kind of don't really have a choice. Sorry.
It's not filed with the
Registry of Deeds.
Oh, right.
Registry of Deeds or
right.
anything like that, no.
It doesn't get recorded.
Right, right.
I think, is that what you're concerned about?
Essentially, it's more like a formal letter when this kind of thing happens, and it's like a formal letter from conservation, that's all.
But it means that if you don't do it, it does give the conservation some teeth to actually enforce it.
And what is a caliper? You said 2-inch caliper. What does that mean?
It's the measurement at diameter. It's a diameter breast height measurement. You're just asking for trees that are already.
It's a 2-inch diameter tree. That's the standard tree. When you go to buy a tree, the standard tree that is typically bought is most often specified at 2-inch diameter.
It's just a way of measuring the
The
trees.
size of the trunk.
It's 2 inches thick.
Yes.
2 inches thick,
Yep. That's.
which is the way they're sold.
I think if I understand what she's asking is basically, if we clear this, if they ever had to come before conservation again, is this gonna be used as something? I think if I'm understanding what
right.
she's asking.
So what we can do is, once you have shown us that the trees are planted and are, starting to establish reasonably well, we can come back to the commission. I can say to them, I'm happy with the way these trees are looking. Will you please vote to lift this enforcement order? And then I would, if they do so, I would send you a letter saying this is formally
Lifted.
done.
Should you have an enforcement order and an RDA at the same time?
Sure.
I think so.
Yes.
They would be for different
Issues.
projects and different issues on the same property.
Yeah. Did that answer your question?
It does, thank you. Yeah, we're looking to move forward with getting permission to do something else, and I just don't want this to hold that up.
You can still move forward with the RDA. We would strictly.
It's a totally separate thing. If you do an RDA, it's a simplified process, and what we're doing here on replacing trees would have nothing to do with it.
Okay, cool. The only question I have, and we don't need to get into a big conversation, is how big a tree root ball is on a 2-inch tree, because this area is pretty much solid rock. But I'll have to figure that out when we get closer.
The commission hasn't actually discussed this yet, the size of the tree, so that's just the way trees are typically sold.
Got it, okay.
I'm not sure how big the root ball is on a 2-inch tree.
Well, I would-
You know, pretty substantial?
Wherever you're planting the tree, before you go buy them, I'd kind of prepare the hole for it, and just talk.
See how big a hole
And
you
make
can
sure
make.
you can get it in. If you can't get it in, that's a problem once you bought it.
And the hole's gotta be twice the diameter of the root ball.
And they have left the stumps in place.
Right.
So this is the portion to be discussed, really, I suppose. Do you want 4? Are you okay with 2? Would we say 1.5 to 2? What are you thinking?
How many did they take down?
I think it was 6 or 7. Is that right? Isn't that right, Heather?
Yeah, they were, yeah, I think that there were probably 4 or 5 that were, they're still on the yard. Maybe 7 inches in diameter, and maybe there were 2 or 3 that were more like 10 inches in diameter.
All right, so does anyone want to comment on the commission?
Where would these new trees be planted? Because I'm looking at stumps that are there, root system. Do they come back further away from the brook?
They'd have to, yeah, there is no, it's a rocky,
That exact spot, but they could go really anywhere along the bank.
Just
I
so
would-
you can
I would
gain
say,
more soil, that's what I'm looking at.
Within 20 feet of the bank,
Yeah, anywhere.
or 15 feet.
Hate to see them go through, trying to dig through not just rock.
And you also don't want to disturb the bank, trying to plant trees either,
Right,
so.
right.
I do want to.
Does anyone, considering they took down 6, does anyone, looks like there would be room for 4 at least, probably.
Yeah, I agree with 4, and then if there's some real reason they can't do it, they can come back and talk to us.
Okay, you want to make minimum 4, but if they want to put more, that's up to them. I've changed it to 4. That's
Dig
fine.
the holes first before you go shopping.
yeah.
Yeah, make sure that you can actually plant them where, you know, they look, you're trying to put them.
Hire somebody to plant them.
Okay, so we just said within resource areas, so that means, basically, I guess that's the whole 200-foot riverfront, really. So should I actually just amend that to something like within,
25 feet of the bank.
yeah, I can make it that?
Yeah, that's fine.
So that still gives you plenty of room, Heather.
Yeah, I think it'll be okay. I might get a little help on this one.
Yeah, I would definitely have one planted.
Okay.
Yeah.
So 4 trees within 25 feet of the bank.
Okay,
Awesome.
Good with that?
all right, so do we need a motion then?
Yes, please.
Okay. I'd like to make a motion to issue the enforcement order as discussed for the property at 1 Thornton Drive to replace 4 trees minimum.
So moved.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? 700.
I don't think we were clear.
Okay, I think you're all set. Thank you so much for working
Thank
with us.
you. Yeah, no, happy to. Thanks so much. Bye-bye now.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much, Heather. All right. This is really my fault because I did not make it in any way clear to Lisa that we needed, I should have printed them out myself, signature sheets. So I'll maybe get them to you guys within the next week or
we'll
somehow
stop by.
get 4 signatures in the next week. Is that okay?
Can we do a DocuSign? Is that legal?
Oh, we have to get special permission and dispensation and blessings from the
don't
Pope.
worry
and all
about
All
that.
right.
That's crazy.
Next, we have a violation discussion for 0 Cambridge Street. It says parcel 35-115, vegetation and surface drainage.
Jeremy, is that you?
It is me.
All right.
There was suddenly a lot of noise.
Oh, sorry. Maybe it's oh man, I wonder if it's my beard. I apologize. Here, let me mute myself.
You want to do an introduction and who you are and who you work for and so forth?
No, absolutely. Hello, everyone. My name is Jeremy Foote. I'm a senior wetland scientist with TRC, and we're here to talk about some of the things that went on at 0 Cambridge Street and see how we want to move forward from this.
All right, so first, let's have a summary from either Eileen or Lucy. Could you give us a summary of this one?
Well, I mean, our summary might actually be better from Jeremy, but we were out doing some site work. We agreed to meet Jonathan, who also works with Jeremy, at this particular property because there are prospective owners who are considering building a daycare center there. And we had talked with them and with their legal representatives about the fact that you issued an ORAD for that property a few years ago. The ORAD was extended, so we wanted to go out and take a look at what the resources were looking like out
Right.
there. There was wetlands on site and streams that are largely stormwater fed. When we went out there, we realized that some surveyors or something had been through with some very heavy, large machinery and had gouged, made great gouges in the soil, had knocked down some trees and some vegetation. Some of the, track marks were right into the streams and wetland areas. So we wanted to talk about it and probably issue an enforcement order for this
Yeah.
one as well.
Jeremy, would you like to comment on what you saw when you looked at the site?
No, that's pretty much in line with what I saw as well when I went out there. They brought down some sort of tracked vehicle for digging these test pits or drilling these holes. I'm not entirely sure. I looked through all the records I have, and I don't know. We don't know who the company was that was hired to do this work or what exactly they did. There was evidence of drill holes that had been dug and not filled in. It looked like maybe at least one excavation pit had been dug and not really properly replaced. We didn't see any evidence of any trees specifically cut down. There were a lot of saplings that had been run over and displaced by the tracked vehicle. Other than that, yeah, and so that's kind of the extent to where we are. And so now we're kind of figuring out, how we want to move forward. Well, I know we are not here to argue whether or not the event occurred or whether or not some kind of fix needs to take place. I mean, that's just that just needs to what happened. I think what we would like to do is have a larger conversation about what that fix eventually looks like. If the prospective owner does end up looking to purchase the property and renovate the property to include the new education center, the new Young Child Education Center, as I'm familiar with it, how we can sort of incorporate fixes and recompense of this violation into the development of that center, or if the site owner doesn't end up purchasing this property, what kind of restoration efforts need to occur to make the damage that was done right.
All right. Okay, so I'd like to take comments from the commission, I think, because particularly the people who were there may have a lot to say, but anyone can talk. So why don't I go around to everyone? Ed?
I can say I abstained because I didn't go through with you guys yesterday, but I do remember when we shot Keely, and we all went through it, how wet it was in there. So I have not any comments
All
on
right,
the
okay.
damage.
Rob, anything?
No, not specific.
All right, Kent, anything yet? Indra, anything yet? Sarah?
It was chewed up, I can testify. I'm not sure, we don't know who did it, I'm not sure what to do, but yeah, it was disturbed. There were open pits, it looked like
Gouges?
not a professional grade job, I would say.
Okay. All right, Bill, would you like to comment on this?
There's definitely a violation. Who's responsible is the question. Jeremy, what's your involvement? Are you hired by the owner, or how did you get involved in this site?
We are working with the owner, or we are working, as far as I understand, we are working with the prospective owner of the property, the people who are looking at, we are working with the people who are looking to buy this property. Not the specific, not the current owner of the property. We are working with the prospective owner of this property.
And who is the owner?
To be honest, I'm not sure. Most of my dealings and the documents I've read have been through the prospective owner or the prospective buyer. The current owner has not been mentioned in anything that I've read. They're always just referred to as the current owner. And I don't remember I don't remember who was listed when I looked at the property lines originally on the.
Bill has a question.
Michael Chapin and Jay Madden, trustees, Pondfield Solo.
But you, Jeremy, don't know which company actually came in with equipment.
No, I don't. I didn't. I read through because I remember we had that conversation yesterday, and I wanted to try to have that answer. But I looked through all the documentation that I have, and nothing that I have lists who was owned, like none of the documentation I have lists who the contractor was that did this work.
But can you tell us, were they hired by the prospective owners?
They must have been.
Why? The owner could have.
The owner?
I mean, that seems like a reasonable assumption, but I don't know for sure.
All right,
None of the documentation I read.
So Jeremy, let me talk to the commission. I think what we need to do is the following. We need to get the name and address of the owner of the property. Isn't the owner if something happens on your property, isn't the owner responsible, and then they deal with whoever they hired that caused damage?
I was looking up enforcement orders today, just because
Yes.
this is a little bit of a trickier situation. Very often it is the property owner is responsible because they usually hire the people. In issuing enforcement orders, we should really issue it to the person who did the damage and give a copy to the owner.
All right.
So I think we need to track down who did this.
And I think it's not up to us to do the detective work. It's up to the person that's here. They're hired,
Well,
isn't it?
but he's, I mean, Jeremy's just the wetland guy. Sorry to call you that, Jeremy, but you know what I mean.
Jeremy,
That's fine.
You're just a wetland guy.
I'm just a wetland guy. I am okay with being just a wetland guy. But no, that is definitely.
He didn't, he works for TRC, and TRC didn't do this damage, right?
All right.
According to Mass.
But we can definitely ask. I mean, there's nothing saying we can't ask some questions.
All right.
Because, when we move forward, because I know one of the things when talking to our clients, one of the things we are working with our clients is moving forward with this. And so digging up some of that information, especially if you are issuing an enforcement order, or if we're, for a possible future, if we're going to go out and redelineate everything to include in an ANRAD or a future NOI, like if the client does decide to purchase this property and we need to fill out an NOI, like that's all information we're going to need for moving forward with any kind of permitting or any kind of enforcement anyways. And so that's, we can definitely look into that and get that kind of information.
All right, listen. I think that the commission, or Eileen and staff and Lucy, we should send a letter to the owner, whether it's a copy or to someone and they get a copy. We should send the same letter or a copy to the person who is prospective buyer, and we should ask for the name of the company who did the damage, number one, and I think I think our position should be, we're not tying this to some future project. I don't think that's the way to do it.
I 100% agree with you, and I was going to say that, but I hadn't yet.
Yeah, that's not how it's done here.
In terms of just, a notice of intent on an order of conditions is for work that's
Is
permittable.
proposed.
It's for work that's permittable.
Right.
An enforcement order is for work that, is unpermittable, shouldn't have happened. They were gouging in wetlands and streams. We need to address that through an enforcement.
And I think the letter has to say that we would like the flags from the ORAD that's in effect to be hung, so we know where the wetland areas are. You can't ask for a restoration or any kind of repair or mitigation for the damage if you don't know where all the areas are. And right now, with everything being torn up, you can't tell anything.
Okay, that's not a bad idea.
So I think the flags for the ORAD that's in effect should be rehung. And I think this letter to both the owner and to the, they can sort it out who's doing it, but that should be rehung.
Okay, so I can try and track down the who did part. That's fine, but by a letter, shouldn't, they need to be getting an enforcement order.
Right, that's what I meant.
Oh, Right.
Yeah, I said letter, but essentially it's an enforcement
So
order.
once we track them down, they're
Right.
getting an enforcement order. I agree. My initial enforcement order that I had drafted was just to ask at least for, at least some minor fixes of filling in the gouges. But your thought is rehang the flags.
They have to rehang the
It could have
flag.
both.
How can you do a remediation for that much intrusion into the buffer zone and the wetland with that much damage until you know what the resource areas that are in effect now?
Right, so it should make it clear that it's possibly like a phased, it would be a
Right.
phased approach.
Yes,
First, starting with,
yes.
okay,
Yeah, define what was damaged before you define what needs to be fixed.
Right, right.
And if somebody's buying the site, looking to buy the site, and they're gonna do a notice of intent, it's kind of like, you can't really do it if you don't really know, to your point, what's actually wetland and all that.
right, which was in place because there was an existing ORAD, which.
By doing the
It hasn't
enforcement.
expired, right.
Yes, by doing the
No, it
enforcement
hasn't
order.
expired.
No.
So by doing the enforcement order, you're basically, to Larry's point, you're resetting back to what it should be, so when they go to do it, they notice of
And,
intent.
and frankly, if they move on to a notice of intent for a proposed project, they're gonna have to do this anyway. They're gonna have to know what they're working.
Yep, I'm sorry.
It's just that we have,
Well, I think the idea was with the future project is if we can try to include some remediation, because if they move forward with buying the property, and because at that point they're going to be doing a pretty large disturbance of the area, and I think the idea is that in addition to what would normally be required for that level of disturbance, if in recompense to the damage that was done, if they could make additional fixes to the property during the future development. I think that was kind of one of the things we were looking at. It's not.
As I already explained, that would be for something that's permittable. And gouging through a
Yep.
wetland wouldn't be permittable.
and repairing those gouges is not, it's not something that's a
I mean,
proposed,
it's not something that's what.
it's not a proposed project that meets
Right, and I
performance
think it's
standards.
relatively limited to at least smooth it out at a minimum.
All right, I mean, I think what we need to have is who the players are. We need, on the enforcement order, have them get that to us, and the existing flags need to be rehung, and then once we see all that, then we can decide the approach. But right now, with not knowing who the players are, because you don't know, Jeremy, and because we don't know how much of wetlands was altered compared to how much buffer zone, we can't tell anything, I'm sorry.
No, that's perfectly reasonable.
We don't know who to address the enforcement order to.
Visit with us, have any issues?
Well, he was with us when we saw it the first, a few weeks ago with Jonathan, with a different wetlands. He saw it.
Who's sorry?
John Keely.
So I don't know if there's any data or anything that
Owner should know who's
lingered
working.
back then.
I was there then. We have all the
Okay,
information.
yeah, that's right, that's right.
All right, so I think we've agreed now, we're going to issue an enforcement order. It's going to have two components. We're going to, if we can't identify who all the players are, we're going to ask whoever we can identify who the players are, the company that did the damage, and who the prospective owner is. And I would think that the current owner would know who the prospective.
Well, I know who their prospective owner is. I've already been in touch with them. I met with them and their legal counsel, as I said, and we were proceeding, and then we discovered this. So we'll go directly to them and legal. They're being represented by Reamer and Braunstein.
Are they?
Yeah. So that's who I'm going to contact first thing tomorrow.
Okay. All right, sounds good. So I think that's all we can do here today. then.
But with phase one being have flags rehung with a view to then seeing what phase two really looks like.
Right.
In terms of, okay.
We can't decide, even responding to your question, Jeremy, about can we do it as part of a future project, which I don't think is likely, but until we see exactly, we can quantify exactly how much damage was done, what is the damage to wetland versus what's damage to buffer zone, I don't think we can answer those questions.
No, it's perfectly reasonable.
All right, so,
Okay, So just so I'm clear, I had an enforcement order drafted. We'll put that on hold until I can find out who it's going to, and then I'll have you sign it.
it's nice to have an address, yes.
Well, I mean, I can send one out, but ideally, we would have you then, ratify. Thank you. Thank you. I'm too tired for words right now.
Yeah, you can ratify after the fact. You can send it out.
Right.
And we'll just ratify.
So if we find out who to send it to, I'll get that
All right.
underway. All right?
All right, Jeremy, I think that's all we can do here tonight, and,
No, that's fine.
and we will be in touch, I guess.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Jeremy.
No, of course. Thank you very much.
Jeremy, do we have Jeremy's address and all that stuff, and
Do you mean email address?
email and all that stuff?
Well, he works for TRC, so I'm sure we do.
We also have his direct email, because we do.
Yes.
Okay. All right, Jeremy, have a good evening.
You too. Have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Planning board comments?
I wrote 17A Street on there. Why did I write 17A Street?
That's something, you went there. That's so unhelpful.
No?
I'm going to say no.
Subcommittee and staff reports, anything?
I had a lot of people come to my first stewards meeting, which is
I was going to ask you about it.
Yeah, I had like a very similar turnout to the first meeting, which was great, and unexpected.
What does similar mean?
I think we were only missing a singular family, and they might have had other commitments.
How many people?
I want to say probably 7 or 8, something crazy. I had like a large volume of people in there.
That's
and we-
excellent.
Yeah, filled a whole hour full of time.
Okay, so you think it's well underway now?
Seems to be underway.
She has plans.
Oh, I'm a girl with plans.
She's a person with plans. Okay. Thank you. Anything else on that? Oh, no, you're all set. Okay, so you'll keep us updated, right? Of course. Next meeting is May 8th, and then subsequent is May 22nd. Is there anything else we need to do? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second? All in favor? 700. Good evening.